I hope you all appreciate the questions and the answers that we give later. We have some audience engagement as well, which is good to see. Constance Every is running as an independent for the governor of Tennessee against the incumbent Republican Bill Lee. She's an activist. She runs two nonprofit organizations, Sleeves4Needs and Black Coffee Justice. She also served in the U.S. Army in Afghanistan as well for 15 years, I think. So we're going to talk a little bit more about your background and just we have a lot to cover today. Education. We're going to talk about cannabis legalization. We're going to talk about economy, schools, a lot of different topics. So can you kind of give your audience a brief bio into who is Constance Every?
Yeah. Constance Every, I tell you all the time, believe whatever you heard, good and the bad, because I match energy. I'm a vibe. I match the vibe. But no, real quick. Yeah, thank you so much, Kiko, for having me here today. I don't care if I call you, do you want me to call you Kiko? Or do you want me to call you
That's
Professor? Anything
perfect.
like
I
that?
love Kiko.
Okay, cool. So thank you so much, Kiko, for having me on the Free Thinkers Forum today. I really appreciate that. Yes, my name is Constance Every. I am a Knoxville, Tennessee native. I was born and raised right here in this beautiful state of Tennessee. I did my pre K through 12 education here. I did some of my college education in the UTK atmosphere, but I started out at Austin University up there in Clarksville, Tennessee. That is also where I got introduced to the military, and of course, as many people that are coming from the lower income demographics and poor economical upbringings, we don't have money for education. So that's how I found myself in the military. It was a way to pay and afford education. Yes, I joined under those pretenses, but I also joined in 2006. As some people are aware, what was going on in 2006, that was the jump off of the Iraqi war. And as we know, eventually would go to Afghanistan, which is where I did my deployment in Afghanistan. As far as who I am, as you've already highlighted some things, yes, I am well endowed into the Black activism, Black activist advocacy work, particularly definitely Black rights. As we know, that is a long-standing historical struggle for this country known as America, but also for human rights, because one of the things that you find when you start to fight for Black rights, you find that you're crossing over many areas of human rights, such as homelessness, disabled veterans who are also homeless and struggling with mental illness, affordability for basic things like housing, food, utilities. You just find yourself in a lot of areas of just not just Black rights, but like I said before, a collective in an overall all around umbrella of human rights. So that's what I've been doing for the last roughly 7 to 10 years since I got out of the military in 2015. And so that's kind of me in a nutshell. And I'm sure we're going to unpackage me a little bit more. I come from a family home of two parents. I am a two-parent home a child, which is rare in our statistics of Black people. My father has worked for the federal government in Oak Ridge, Y12 area. Of course, I can't speak on what he does because he doesn't speak on what he does. But my father raised me on pro-union workforce ethics, because that's how you protect your rights. So I'm definitely pro advocate for unionships because I was born that way. I did a hot sting at the United States Postal Service. I was part of the mail handlers union. And actually, any job I can ever think of that I've ever had that had a union, I've always been a member of the union. Because again, it was about protecting my voice, my circumstances, my rights as an employee for major corporations and industries. As far as my mother is what a mother is. She's a nurturer. She's a carer. She was big into Christianity, Christian faith in the church. So I grew up Southern Baptist, like many of us do in the South. Of course, later on in life, as I've grown and been able to learn, research, and study for myself in theology and other aspects, I today more lean towards the spiritual faith-based belief, given the fact that just some of the things around religion and its control concepts. I find that as a free thinker, and the great thing about the show, Free
I
Thinker,
like that.
is that I don't have to conform myself to something because society said so. It's okay for me to be outside of society or even different or even disagree with society if it does not benefit or fulfill my needs. And so that's some of the background on my mother and father. Of course, I have brothers and sisters. I have beautiful nieces and nephews, many cousins with many of their offspring that's also now my cousins, and a beautiful relationship of community and friends all across the city, across the county, across the state, and really across the country, because that's what you do in the military. It does give you another family outside of your so-called, quote unquote, traditional nucleoid family. So that's kind of, like I said, again, some of the aspects of Constance Every, and I hope with the few hours that we're going to visit today and talk, we can further unpackage exactly who is and what is Constance Every.
Oh, we'll definitely do that. No doubt about it, because I love to talk and we got some talkers on this forum right now. And I have just a follow-up question about just your bio. So you're from the military background. Do you have anyone else in your family that has that background?
Oh yes, yes. Actually, altogether, if I think between before, if you include me, altogether, I think I've had roughly about 20 something members of my family that have
Okay.
been in military service, like aunts, uncles, brothers, cousins. I even got a cousin right now who's in the Navy as we speak right now. So yeah, I come from a military family background as well. Absolutely.
What are your views about the military now? You say you served for 15 years. Do you have a conflict of, not a conflict of interest, but do you have conflicting views about the military and what it does as far as this military industrial complex? Do you have sort of a conflict with that, like on a personal level?
Yeah, I mean, well, when I did my last tour with Afghanistan in 2011, 2012, when we went out, came back. But you know, that tour was a really rough tour. That was a tour that I had more interaction with the civilians of the Afghanistan country. And one of the things I'll tell you right now, they look like me and you, Kiko. That's what they look like. They look like us. And
Hmm.
so it was really hard to realize that what we've been through in our history as Black people with the American and then colonizing imperialism, neo-colonialism imperialism system, we were literally doing the same thing all over again. Now we're just calling it USA America, United States Army. And so realizing that I was in a country that was being oppressed and having an outside entity come in and disrupt their way of life, their culture, their beliefs and everything, and now having someone tell them you no longer can live this way, or you have to now follow this new regime and rule, or there will be consequences and repercussions that obviously we're doing as a war right now, which is bombing and killing their families and their homes. And so just having that harsh reality check to realize that the very thing I hate in my own country, I'm now in someone else's country doing the exact same thing. That's why I said that, the beauty of, I think, going to war is that yes, it was a very ugly place. And so I learned, one thing I learned is that war is not the solution to any conflict that you're
Hmm.
having, whether it's diplomatic, economical, even if it is a dispute, verbal or physical. The war level is like ultimate, like we are not able to maintain humanity any longer and have functional interactions that we cannot resolve our solutions or reach resolution with to our problems. And so that's one of the harsh realities of war. But the second one was, like I said, seeing exactly how America and fellow colonizing countries are able to do exactly what they do, which is that they have more money, they have more people, they got more resources, they have team, they tag team with other countries that can pour in their resources and help even beef up even more people and accessibility and resource and funding to their campaigns. And so when you have a country that you're not even fighting an army over there, that's what I don't think people understand. We were not fighting an Afghanistan army. We were fighting Afghanistan civilians who were fighting for their rights on their land, for their beliefs, their culture, and their way of life. That America and fellow NATO allies were coming to disrupt and basically take over from them. And
Hmm.
so after I realized that in my last tour, I said, yeah, this is it for me. I'm getting out of this. And if anything, I'm going to come home and start fighting for the people, because if America could do that to Afghanistan, guess what America do? They'll do it to us as well. They'll do it pretty much to anybody at that point.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Well explained. Yeah. I was just curious because I know a lot of people get their messaging about the military from the mainstream media, and this forum is a very
Mhm.
critical, has a critical approach towards the mainstream media. Like, we don't follow corporate media, we fight against those narratives. And there are lots of veterans, regardless of political persuasion, that are anti military now, as far as what they're doing, as far as the anti imperialism. They don't see the
Mhm.
point of spending all this money on war, funding other
Mhm.
countries for senseless reasons. And there are a lot more people that, you know, conservative minded people, even not, the more people I meet, the more people are saying, I'm just getting so tired of this, Kiko, just a war machine. Like, we need to
Mhm.
protect our own people and our own interests here. And that's kind of why I hear from you as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, we could better spend that money for our needs in America. And that's, yeah, I totally agree. I'm sure that fellow veterans have told you the same thing I'm going to say. I'm going to repeat it. This is a veteran line. Is that America needs to take care of America first. You know, it's ironic that America's military is around the world policing everybody and everything, but then when we're at home, we can't police our own selves. Texas should have never happened if America was serious about security in their own homeland. We shouldn't have starving children in America if we were serious about feeding and agricultural investment in our own country. It's just, you pick a topic, pick any topic. You know what I'm saying? Healthcare. We shouldn't have this dysfunctional system called healthcare if we were serious about our needs and making sure our people are healthy and living longevity, productive lives. And so, yes, I totally agree with that statement. War is a waste of taxpayers' money because that's what's paying for it. So yes, fellow Americans, you are the big spender on wars. When they investing what Trump said last time around, he was investing like over $700 billion of taxpayers' money into war. And here's my thing for the folks who are pro-war, or for particularly political leadership, who was the real ones who's kind of driving this narrative around war, is what are you seeking? Like, what is our objective and goal? Because I'll tell you right now, when I was in Afghanistan, I'm gonna tell you what the objective and goal was. It was to overtake the Iraqi, Iran, and Afghanistan war. Oh, that's what we were there for. We were there actually transporting oil drills for Dick Cheney and George Bush contracting companies and their crony friends is what we were out there doing. We were, like I said before, we were not fighting the Afghanistan army. We were not fighting corrupted Afghanistan government or regime. We were not fighting people who were actual enemies of Afghanistan or invading Afghanistan, and we were their NATO or their ally support. We were over there literally hijacking and stealing those people's resources, which was their oil. That's exactly what we did. That was another reality check. I was like, I ain't even out here for a real reason. I'm out here because some greedy people have me out here risking my life and my fellow comrades' lives. You understand that? We're out there together, and we're really out here for some rich people at home initiative, not for actual war because someone's really violating a human right, and war was the only answer to get the human right and get the civility and humanity back to the people that we quote unquote are fighting against. So yes, war, that Afghanistan war was so bogus, it's not even funny. And like I said, yeah, as you've already expressed, fellow veterans share the same sentiments. It was a waste of my time, a waste of my life. And at the end of the day, the mental illness I deal with today, because the things I saw and experiences I had, was just not worth it. I would have definitely traded my 15 years back in a heartbeat for something totally different to spend that 15 doing, instead of been serving in the military that was basically telling me to go do what they've done to people that look like me as well and do like me. Like I said, they look just like us over there.
Okay, so I love this because we're already kind of getting into issues, and I'm all about the issues, not these platitudes and this team game with the blue, red, green, purple, yellow. I'm all about the issues, and so I love that we're talking about this already. Can you kind of tell the audience a little bit about your two nonprofit organizations before we kind of get into your campaign and your strategy? I know you said that you don't want to reveal too much strategy on the Almost in Agreement podcast. You was telling the host that, but we will talk a little strategy. I mean, I think it is important to kind of get the visibility and stuff, but can you talk a little bit more about Black Coffee Justice and Sleeves4Needs?
Yeah, and I want to correct something. It's not that I'm not willing to share strategy. I know that my fellow candidate mates are watching and paying attention. And like you said, when you speak more to the issues and less of like what you said, more of the party color lines and loyalty, I don't have time for that. I'm here to talk about issues. But I find that when you are running on a party loyalty kind of alliance ticket, you find yourself getting caught up in that scenario conversation.
You almost said something else.
Yeah. I'm a cuss a little bit, but I do.
That's all good. No, it's a free thinkers forum, free speech.
Right? Let's be authentic here. But what I find is that when you are party alliance and loyalty, you kind of do get lost or distracted, or even less educated and informed about the issues. And so they find themselves piggybacking and kind of parroting some of your comments. When they have a larger platform, people may think like, oh, wow, that was a great idea, when really that was never the idea. They're stealing it, which we know there's a story about that too, right? Stealing ideas don't always work out for people. But getting back to the subject, I just want to correct that. I'm not afraid to share strategy, but there are some aspects of my strategy I may not be forthcoming to, because I would rather wait till I can speak to a larger platform, which just might be it. You have a pretty big base platform, so this might be the spot. Depending on how you ask it, what it is, we'll see how that goes, right? We're not going to predetermine anything. But okay, talking about the organization. So yes, my first organization I founded was Sleeves4Needs. It's a 501c3 social service organization. I found this organization in disparity. It became my own beacon of light and hope in a very dark time of my life. Let's talk about being a veteran. Let me show you how America shows their appreciation of you. When I returned from overseas and had completed my contract with honorable discharge, that means I didn't do anything to get out of it or do anything that would violate the contract that I made with the United States of America, with the Department of Defense Army. So I got an honorable discharge. My country dumped me back into the streets, and I spent 4 years in homelessness. And that was a hard 4 years. Now, you know, I know some people say, well, you got a family and things. Well, again, you have to understand the Black family dynamic and the way we are raised and taught as children to parent to children. And unfortunately, in the Black family dynamic, we don't do what some of our fellow ethnic counterparts do when their children are grown and in times of hard need. We just don't do it the same. And so I was not given a life raft by my parents. I was pretty much left to figure it out on my own. And not knocking my parents, I love them to death. Now, actually, I do appreciate they didn't save me, because if they didn't, I might not have done some of the things I've done to even get to here to have the conversation we're having right now. So I don't hold any animosity or grudges to my parents. I was frustrated, but now I see the benefit was greater. And some people could argue that. I know there's some people that may debate that all day, but that's fine. But I found this Sleeves4Needs in homelessness because what happened to me was, you know, I was battling with the VA. The VA had deemed me 70% mentally incompetent or mentally ill. That's maybe a better way to put it. And they deemed me 70% mentally ill from my PTSD and my trauma I experienced overseas. I did have a couple of injuries, like my knee, my Achilles, my shoulder. These things still bother me to this day. So I had a few injuries, but what the big thing was my PTSD, because I was actually in a situation where I was in a kill zone with fellow comrades, and was actually hit by an actual IED. I actually did experience an IED hit. Thank God, as you see, I'm sitting here with 10 fingers, 10 toes, but the shock and the trauma of it all still exists and still remains to this day. So I found this Sleeves4Needs as a beacon of hope, because I was looking around, I saw other people like me, not just veterans, it was elderly people. People don't realize how many elderly people are in homelessness because they are on fixed incomes and they're getting shoved out their homes. Because property taxes or increases in rent. And as we know, Social Security is actually just now making its first true cost of living raise in how many years since we've had to help Medicare? So it's like, you know, they're just now acknowledging the fact that costs went up and we have not given people enough income to even live off of. So at that time when I was in homelessness, it was a lot of elderly people who were literally pushed out of their homes where they could not afford it and they did not have the cost of living increase on their fixed income. The other factor that I saw in homelessness, believe it or not, there are professors and educated people out there, but life is hard. You know, we don't talk to the guy who has the doctorate degree in sociology or anthropology, but we also don't know the story about how his wife died from terminal 4 illness, cancer, how his daughter may have been killed in a tragic car wreck, or how his son drowned on a weekend trip vacation in Florida from an incident of proper inflation of his lifeguard or his life vest. You know, we don't talk about that. And so these are things that, as a person on the outside may look like they got it all together, they can spiral out at any moment because life is unfortunately hard. And so I guess that's tied to some aspects of mental illness, right? So we don't talk about that. We do, but we don't. We do talk about the mental illness factor of our homeless community, but then we also find a way to criminalize them or even defame or humiliate them by trying to throw in the drug conversation. Here's the kicker though. Let me give some data. In the most recent report that was done, particularly for the Knox County area, and I have to look more at the statewide aspect, which I will soon. I'm actually going to do a highlight on housing facts here real soon. But in Knox County area, they found out that in the roughly about 10,000 plus homeless people here in Knox County, which is over 10K, over that. But what they found out was that 60% of the homeless community was made up of people who could no longer afford their homes. So they were pushed out. Another 20% was people with mental illness. So meaning like they mentally need to be somewhere else, but the streets is the only option because unfortunately Knoxville closed our Lake Shore, which is one of our longest standing mental health hospitals here. We didn't have one. We literally don't have one. They got a new one coming, but it's like years after the fact and years after this population's already grown over. And then so that's 20, so that's 60, that's 20, that's 80%. And then I want to say it was like maybe it was either 20% or 50% was actual people with drug addiction. But again, drug addiction is the word here. And when we talk about drug addiction, we're talking about someone who is taking drugs as an escape from what the actual issue is. Because again, like I said, life is hard. People have many reasons why they have breakdowns. But when you don't feel like you have any outlet and you're just looking for some relief from that moment of those thoughts that are in your head, constantly reminding you that you're a failure, that you're a loser, that you disappointed so many people, you didn't come through like you said you were going to come through, people find and look for coping mechanisms. And sometimes those coping mechanisms are drugs, but here's a legal one that we don't talk about. How about alcohol? How many people get drunk as hell to escape what they're dealing with? Because alcohol is a legal drug, but it's still a coping mechanism. Someone abuses it every day, bottle after bottle, every weekend. And so seeing that, I realized that we are all in the same boat now. We're literally riding in the same boat. And what we were all dealing with was disparity with no hope. And so I got my first hand of hope from a fellow veteran. Fellow veterans had found me and that were previously homeless themselves, like, hey, there's a way for you. You don't have to be here. Really, nobody should be here, but for you, definitely, there's a whole infrastructure just designed for veterans. And that is how I got my first real hand up and been introduced to some amazing VA counselors out in the Maryville, Tennessee area who really fought with me with the VA to get my 100% disability, because the crazy part was that the VA had already given me 70%, but it was clear that I needed 4% because I couldn't maintain employment because of my mental illness, and more importantly, just civilian interaction. I'm not a people person like I may have been used to. And I think the military did change a lot of that dynamic in myself. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's not a crime to be different. It's not a crime to not be bothered with people. The issue is the mental health aspect, and obviously how people, again, like I said, we demonize and criminalize mental illness instead of really realizing some people just can't handle the same situations the way that we do. And so out of that, getting that VA accessibility, getting connected to VA counselors who were serious about helping veterans and really helping me fight back with the VA and getting my full benefits, I took that along with Sleeves4Needs and said, you know what, we can now go even harder now, because now I know how to get fellow veterans out of homelessness. I know to do that. More importantly, I know more of the resources that are readily available for anybody who's homeless, regardless of the fact. That's the other part we don't talk about, is how these nonprofits, we're going to talk about United Way. We're going to have to talk about Salvation Army. We're going to have to talk about one that's here locally in our community, CARM. We're going to have to talk about these organizations because they're getting millions of dollars of the federal and state and local budget, which again is taxpayers' money, but yet you are not making a dent into homelessness. So what are you doing now? You've brought capitalism into an area that exists, which is nonprofitism, and you have found a way to profit from people's pain and poverty. And so, having that real significant understanding of how these organizations were finding ways to be more of a no to people than a yes, because you have the money, but you're telling people no. You're telling pregnant women they can't stay in your shelter because they had a previous history of incarceration. Make that please make sense. Matter of fact, they should be here first, right? Because you're trying to help them stay out of incarceration and they're pregnant. You would think you would say, hurry up and get in my shelter. But these are things that are really happening in some of these organization spaces. They're finding more reasons to help them why they can't help them than they are telling them how they can help them. And so Sleeves4Needs kind of became that catch them in the crack, catch them in the gap organization. We said, you know what, remove the red barrier, remove the red tape, remove the unnecessary, intrusive 50-page questionnaire about how you got into homelessness. And let's just focus on step one, which is where I'm gonna meet you where you at.
The action.
So let's figure out how we can start from here and get you all the way back to a productive citizen in our society. And so that's what Sleeves4Needs really does. We're a social service organization that meets people where they are. We provide the needs right there on the spot to whatever it is, whether it's food, whether it's clothing. Sometimes we do have shelter. Again, that's based off of our funding resources, because we don't have housing or a complex we put people in, but we do hotels. We do have no problem putting a person in a hotel for a few days and up to a week if the organization has the funds to do such things. And the other things that we do, we also try to catch people before they lose their homes. So sometimes when we have the funding, we can pay your light bill. Sometimes I can pay your rent or your mortgage for you. Things like that. We really try to find ways to really assist people in their moments, to relieve that disparity off of them, to give them some hope, to know that someone does care and we see you. That's the key thing. You're visible here. I see and hear you. And more importantly, fighting and advocating, because that's the other part of it, right? Because then after we do the work to help the people, we know that that's a temporary solution. We got to find a permanent solution. And unfortunately, who has all the access to resources and the money? Our political leaderships, our municipality bodies. They have those positions. And so we have to go and now advocate and let our mayor and our city councils, our county commissioners, our county mayors, our state representatives, our governor, our federal elected officials, and I have to all the way up to the DC president, if that's what it takes. We have to let them know how you're spending our money. You're missing a lot of people. And when you do that, you're leaving a lot of people hurt and hopeless, and more importantly, wide open for harm and violence. And let's understand something. Violence is not always physical. There's economical violence. There is verbal violence. There is identity violence. And so violence is not always, oh, I'm gonna walk around punching your face, Kiko. Sometimes it's, oh, I'm gonna purposely harm Kiko by denying him access or denying him resources or denying him funding for something he desperately needs for his own livelihood and well-being. That's also a form of violence. So that is Sleeves4Needs in a nutshell. We obviously birthed out a sister org, Black Coffee Justice. And as we already discussed, Black Coffee Justice kind of picked more up the actual human rights fight, because at some point when you consistently see people struggling to pay for housing, struggling to pay for the light bill, struggling to pay for childcare, struggling to pay for their fuel or their bills so they get back and forth to work, struggling to maintain food in their home, once you start seeing kind of a pattern of behavior, you start to realize this is not just a every now and then or a flip of the coin or a situational circumstance. There's something bigger happening. There's more of a systematic design happening to this. And so Black Coffee was birthed out of Sleeves4Needs because we were constantly seeing these issues of human rights violation. Like it's unconstitutional to tell children that they don't get to eat tonight because mom makes $7.25 an hour and we're not paying her living wage. But we're also charging the same time at a $7.25 an hour. She's got to figure out she's gonna pay for $5 milk out of her $7.25. And don't get it twisted, because she still needs gas to get back and forth to that job. And so we started realizing that no, some of these issues that we're dealing with in Sleeves4Needs, these are flat out unconstitutional acts towards human rights. And so Black Coffee was birthed in the sense of fighting and being a full-time activist and advocate for those human rights that we were seeing in violation through the work of Sleeves4Needs. And so Black Coffee has led protests for George Floyd. We have traveled to Louisville, Kentucky to stand in solidarity of Breonna Taylor. We have protested majorly in local community for Anthony Thompson Jr., who was a high school student murdered in a bathroom by Knoxville Police Department. We have led major community events such as Juneteenth 2020 was a huge one for us. We came back in 2021. We paused this year because I'm running for office, and so the committees and things really lean on me for guidance and strategic planning. And so I had to step back, and when no one stepped up, I said, "We'll just pause. Not a big deal. Someone else can do it. We're not one of those groups like, oh, we got to do it all. We're like, no, someone else can do it. This is another year for another opportunity that we can find or maybe identify someone that will invest in the energy and time and setup that we put into community events that maybe we can collaborate the following year in 23. Or if I'm governor, I guess we're really going to do it big for the whole state at that point. And so, yeah. So we do Juneteenth. We put down a Black Lives Matter mural on the 2800 block of MLK. As you know, everybody got a Martin Luther King Jr. Street. We put the Black Lives Matter mural on our Martin Luther King Street. That's right in front of our historical Black high school, and also in front of our oldest Black business in our city, in our community. And so, we were very adamant, and then we put a lot of pressure on our political leadership from the state, from the local to the federal level, I'm sure most of my elected officials and those that are running around the state, they know my name. I think it's funny when people
They
say,
know
"Oh
who
yeah,
you
I know
are.
who you
I've
are."
seen your videos all over the internet. Trust me. They definitely know who you are.
So there's a lot of pressure on political accountability, which is the motto of Black Coffee Justice. Black Coffee Justice is accountability served strong. You know, Black coffee is strong, right? And so that's the point. We're serving accountability really strong because unfortunately, what we see in politics far too often, even right now, look at Joe Biden.
Oh
Look at the
gosh.
Democrats. Look at the Republicans. I don't care. Pick any side. Pick any politician. What are you seeing right now? A lot of lack of accountability for things, right? Just a lot of finger pointing. They act like children. It's almost like I feel like I'm in a room full of daycare with 4-year-olds and under, because that's how they behave. It's like it's a lot of finger pointing, a lot of back and forth, but no action and no resolution and no movement towards true solution. Just a lot of blaming, but no true solution.
And it's designed like that. They know exactly what they're doing, and it's so frustrating seeing all my friends and family, they argue about which side is better. And I'm saying to myself, you realize that these people don't care about you at all. And they're literally using you guys as pawns and for votes and for power and for careers. They don't care about your actual everyday life because they already have the health care. They have all their basic needs met. What we want. So we want those basic needs too, what you guys enjoy in Congress. And I don't know why that's so hard without being called a socialist, without being called all these names. And I don't know why people just can't come together and agree on simple, basic needs. Like we can argue the other stuff, but people should have their basic needs. And that's not happening.
Correct. Absolutely right. Like you just said before, you know, people are arguing about the same bird. I have to remind people that there was no right. We don't. Our country is called the United States of America. It's not called the left-right states of America. It's called the United States of America. And as you said before, yes, our political leaders are fully aware of what they're doing. They know they are putting everybody on the puppet strings and pointing each other against each other over things like race, over things like economical living, annual income standards, over social economical status, over educational status, over where I live at neighborhood status. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you're right. They find a lot of ways to bring a lot of division. But as you said before, if we as the people just focus on the very basics, which is that at the end of the day, we all deserve housing. We all deserve food. We all deserve clean water. We all deserve clothing, and we all deserve livable paying wages for whatever job, whatever title. I don't care if you got a degree or not. You deserve to afford from your job an income that will supply your basic need met of your home. And I always remind people about the Simpsons. I was like, remember the Simpsons, guys? Remember Homer worked at a factory plant and was able to afford a home in the suburbs to supply his 3 children and his stay-at-home wife. Keep that in mind. Marge didn't work. Marge stayed at home with a garage. That's the 90 era. You used to be able to do that. Now today, that's almost impossible without breaking your back over and over. You know, I think it's crazy how politicians brag about how the unemployment rate is down, but they don't talk about the fact that unemployment rate is down, but people are working 2, 3, and even 4 jobs just to make ends meet. Something's wrong again with that narrative. And I recently shared a post, I think I saw that you liked it, where I said that, you know, working hard is not a compliment. That's not a compliment. Matter of fact, if you're working hard, that means someone's working easy and profiting off you at this point. Because if you're breaking your back, trust me, somebody somewhere is collecting all the change off of your hard work and your hard labor. That's why people confuse me with the whole, well, I don't mind working hard. I don't want nobody to give me nothing. No one is giving you anything. What I'm saying is give you actually the worth of your labor. That's what I'm actually telling you. And so when you say as a working class American, I don't mind working hard, I don't want nothing given to me, you're also telling the rich guy at top, it's nothing wrong with me saying work 50 hours a week or 60 or 80 hours a week so you can afford your light bill this month while I'm here to pull up in my Ferrari and I didn't break a single fingernail to do that. Thanks to you. That's what that really says to me.
But see, a lot of people that identify, they're not on the left. They think that they're left, but they're not really the left. And I have to always tell my audience that Democrats are not part of the left. Liberals are not left. The real left realizes that people on the right who are on the real right, they have the same issues that we have. But these people that are on this left or right paradigm, they like to argue that, they don't realize that capitalism is still an exploitative system. and and they've lived so long under capitalism they don't realize that this is the only way I can live. And I'm not saying that
Mhm.
capitalism is ever going to go away. I'm not going to say that right now because right now we don't have the infrastructure for that to happen. But if we're going to
Mhm.
operate under capitalism, at least say to yourself, you realize that there's a lot of inequality across the board. That's not innocent inequality. That's economic inequality because this system is meant for there to be unequal situations. And so
Mhm.
you are a victim
Mhm.
of that situation, whether you like it or not. You can say that you work hard, but like you're saying, the labor has been exploited, and
Mhm.
no one should be making 300 times the amount of money that you're making when you're the worker. You are the labor. They
Right.
only have that money because of you. So for you to
Right.
be passive and say it's okay, I can work as hard as possible. Yeah, but to a certain point, you need to be getting the benefits from that work.
I want to piggyback on that because I want you to also understand something. You cannot work your way out of poverty. You can't do it, especially when it's designed for you to be there. So that's what I'm saying. When you go get that fourth and fifth job, you're still poor. You're still living in poverty. So tell me now tell me, based off of those who believe in the capitalistic agenda, as we're talking about, then tell me how a person who works 5 jobs, probably making now, if you take 725 times 5, what is that? That's $35 an hour, right? Take minus taxes. So really, after they make the 35 rate, and then you minus up the tax, they're probably really more down to about $25 hour rate, which is what is really the standard needed for a livable wage today in the inflated market we live in. And yet this person still lives in lower income neighborhoods. Their children still attend lower income school district. They are still buying food from grocery stores that have spoilage or soiled food product. Not getting a fresh. They're getting what's left over after the fresh
Hmm.
is picked out. And yet you want me to believe that hard work is the solution to this person's circumstance. That's how insane the philosophy is about people who support capitalism. And so, yeah, you're right. There's no such thing as working out of poverty when a system's designed to keep you impoverished in the first place.
And I noticed too, and we're going to talk about who you can actually connect to because I believe your message is a pretty universal message, and I believe your base as a whole is a strong base. I've watched some of your podcasts and listened to some of your videos, and you talk about the veterans a lot. You talk about homeless people a lot. You talk about
Mm-hmm.
Black people a lot. You talk about working class
Mm-hmm.
people a lot. By the
Mm-hmm.
time you culminate all these groups together, that's a big base.
That's the
And
majority. Yeah.
but my question for you would be, how do you get these people who identify as the D team, who are the professors in my class? I'm a poor person still though. I'm not, even though I'm a professor, but you have people who are very much tenured professors. They're these white collar professionals. They vote Democrat every election. And then you have these people who are the R representatives who are poor, and some of them are business owners, entrepreneurs, but they always vote Republican regardless. How do you cut into people like that, regardless of what side that they're on, regardless of how different that they think that they are? How do you capitalize off of those people who identify that way and the other side as well?
I think data. I think this is where numbers don't lie really becomes the conversation here because that's one of the things I've kind of already been experiencing with the campaign. I've had Democrats and Republicans, more Republicans actually have challenged me. They call me the libertard and
Oh
Democrat.
God.
And I have been, it's funny, right? I'm like, I'm neither. I'm actually an independent candidate because I don't
Exactly.
believe in the two-party system, but
Hmm.
I'll take out the name calling. Like you said, anything that seems to be about human rights, they're just boxing it all in like, oh, I don't want to hear that. But to me, this is where data doesn't lie. The numbers are what I speak to. And more importantly, one of the things I know about people, no matter where they're at, how you get their attention, you talk about money. And so these are the things that I like to discuss when I talk about this particular aspect of trying to unite people. That is kind of the angle of the campaign when we talk about data. What I want people to understand something, when I say in the state of Tennessee, only 6% of our country is making over $200,000 a year annually or more, I'm talking to the 94% now. Because when I'm
Hmm.
telling you that 6% makes 200,000 or more, and you're not in that category, guess what side of the face you're now on? You're over here in the economical crisis and cost burden group, which is the 94% of the state. When
Hmm.
I tell you that 94% of the 10 care recipients are parents who live in poverty, again, who am I talking to now? The majority of our state. You see what I'm saying? So I try to really hone in on data and how we're spending our current tax budget. And more importantly, trying to get people to understand how the way, because like you said, it's not these ideals we state are extreme to people because like you just said earlier, we're so used to doing something a certain way that anything outside of that just seems, that's what seems extreme. That's what seems insane. You got to understand, we are generational people, right? So you got somebody that's 80 years old who really don't know the other ways. So they see somebody like me, 37 years old, talk about, oh, we can do this now. To them, it is insane. They're like, my whole life, I have never seen this done. So it does come off extreme because they're like, how are you, 37-year-old, going to do something that I couldn't even do with my 37-year-olds, or even for the last 40 years of my life has not seen that have been achieved. And then, like you said, it's because we have to start first changing the mindset. And so that's why when I talk about our budget, our $52 billion budget, and I highlight the fact that only 7 million people, though, live in the state of Tennessee, 7 million Americans live in the state of Tennessee, there's no reason that anybody should be struggling in Tennessee. There's no reason that Tennessee should be so highly ranked in poverty in this country the way that we are, because honestly, we have enough tax dollars here to help our state. And so that's why I bring up things like how how we are trying to have current budget line items want to spend $500 million of taxpayers' money on an NFL stadium that belongs to the Tennessee Titans, but at the same time, the NFL is a billion-dollar industry, and we have roadways from I-40 East, I-40 West, I-75 South, I-75 North that you cannot drive down without hitting a bump hole or something. To me, that's something we should be alerting to. Like, wait a minute, why are we spending money for an industry that has its own money that we can spend our money towards more of our needs in our state to better serve our people versus investing in a corporation that is well endowed and well taken care of to the point they can pay their athletes millions of dollars as well just to play on the football field. Something is wrong with this narrative. Same thing, a lot of people don't even know this. I'm gonna tell something else for the state of Tennessee. Not only are you invested in $500 million in a football stadium, but I don't think a lot of people aware of the fact that they're also invested in a $14 million baseball stadium right here in my community, in my city. And that's because Randy Boyd, who is the driver of that conversation, he is what? A capitalist as well. And so what does he do? He's buddy with who? Bill Lee, who's our current governor. And so what is he able to do? He's able to write up these personal private contract agreements and other things with our governor and our state legislators to get personal money out of, again, taxpayers' budget. It's taxpayers' money at the end of the day. And he's able to take 14 million of our budget dollars and pour it into a baseball stadium. Let me ask you something, Kiko. Did you get a phone call from anybody asking about that deal? You were okay with that? Did anybody call you and say, hey, Kiko, we're going to give Randy Boyd down in Knoxville 14 million of your tax dollars for a baseball stadium? Anybody call you and ask you that question?
No, of course not.
and that's the problem, though, right? But that is the problem. We have so much of our budget that is so poorly spent, so poorly allotted, because it's more about supporting rich initiatives and corporate investment dollars. Like they're literally using our tax dollars as a personal bank account versus what it really is, the people's bank account and serving the people's needs. So that's one of the things I try to bring up, and I thank you for the opportunity to do that, is that I try to highlight data in our budget and how poorly we're spending our budget. And that's why you got people competing over education when education should be a competition, because we have the money. Put the 500 from the stadium back to education, and all of a sudden the education conversation goes away because we have the money for it.
Sure.
Now,
it's about
making us feel like we're struggling. They're making us feel like we're struggling.
It's exactly, the money's there. It's about how you use the money, like you said. And I saw you were in a back and forth with some people on social media about talking about wasteful spending. The Bill Lee, he got a lot of criticism, even from Republicans, about this. What was it? A voucher he was giving for people who wanted to visit Tennessee. He's getting a lot of flack from that. And that's one of those things too, where that's not transparent budgeting. No one knows where that money is going. To your point, they don't know where the money is going at all a lot of times. And so if that happened with the voucher, with the travel, what else do we not know about that's been spent without taxpayer money?
A lot. I'll give you a few more, actually. I'm glad you brought up the voucher program, because what people don't know, that's why we don't have unemployment in Tennessee, because that was where the money was pulled from. Instead of putting the money into, again, unemployment is for Tennessean folks who don't have jobs right now. So instead of putting the money in unemployment to support our Tennesseans who are without work for various reasons, it is COVID, some of it, but right now people are losing jobs for a lot of different reasons because corporations are allowed to up and leave or move and make changes at the snap of their fingers with no accountability who they're harming when they make those types of decisions. This goes back to also tying into the right to work state clauses in Tennessee. We need to end that because it's foolishness. It's wrong that someone can fire someone because they're disabled. That's something wrong with that. It's wrong that someone can just fire someone because they're Black. It's something wrong when you just fire someone because they're a woman or because they're transgender or whatever. It's something wrong when someone can just look at you and say, I don't like how you look. Oh, Kiko, I don't like what your eyebrows are made, so you can't work here no more. Something is wrong with that because that's also denying diversity and uniqueness of individuals, but it's also trying to conform and conformalize and control everybody into this ecosystem of that. If you don't meet my standards, you don't belong here type ordeal, which is what? Oppression. That's a form of oppression. It is that. So you're right. The travel voucher program is what bankrupt unemployment. That's why we don't have it now. But here's a big one I think a lot of people don't know. What was one of the last final policies that was passed in this year's session? As you know, session has ended. And now we're in the July month. So a lot of those new things have rolled through. But what a lot of people don't know is that one of the other deals that was made with the state legislator and corporation, Fuel Corporation. I'm gonna highlight this, Fuel Corporation. What now has happened in the state of Tennessee? In the past, fuel corporations were responsible for their leaks of their tanks or spills of things of that nature on their property or at their companies. Now today, Tennesseans, you pay that ticket now. So, you know, recently we just had that big oil spill in our state where I think they said it was like the second largest ever oil spill in the state of Tennessee. And it's going to cost almost $200+ million to clean up. Guess who's footing that bill? We are the taxpayers. But the gas companies are charging us $4 or $5 for gas right now, and yet we are footing the bill for their spill of their product. Something's really wrong in the state of Tennessee, and I know a lot of Tennesseans don't know that. So for the state of Tennessee particularly, one reason why our gas prices are so high, because we're actually paying for everything for the fuel company now. They're not responsible for their tanks. They're not responsible for the leak that we just had and any other leak that comes, because someone in our legislature decided that it was better for the taxes to cover that cost than it is for these billion-dollar oil and fuel corporations to cover that cost. Again, Tennessee has been robbed of their money every single day. And when you look, and it's an article that was written full scale on it. So shout out to like Tennessee Outlook, the Channel 5 news networks, you know, those real dog watchers up there in Nashville for us and really keeping an eye on our legislator and our state government to really blast them when they're doing things they have no business doing. Because one of the things that the article broke down was that this is agreement for the next 5 years. They also highlight how oil leaks and spill leaks happen all the time, and that they have an average ticket around $14.5 million a year. So do the math, everybody. 14.5 times 5 is how much money? And that's too much money as far as I'm concerned, because that's money that has been taken off of tables, taken out of homes, taken from education, taken from raising minimum wage pays, taken from unemployment, healthcare, you name it. That is taxpayers' money unnecessarily been spent. And this is why, again, people don't realize we have the money because they say, oh, we don't have that in our budget. That money went to this. No, actually, this is exactly what it went to. And this is why we don't have the money for other things now, is because we're unnecessarily in spending our money in poor allotment funding models that does not serve the greater benefit of our people.
I have a question based on what you just mentioned. I was interested in that almost in agreement, because there was a moment where you, and I think his name is Lord Seth, you guys were talking about the minimum wage. And I identify as a socialist, but I have my issues as well, because I talked to my father-in-law a little bit more about this, and he's more conservative. But minimum wage is a tricky situation, because you talked about a living wage earlier, and that makes sense. But when you talk about minimum wage, let's take the state of New York, for instance. The minimum wage in the state of New York is $15 an hour. Here is $7.25, right? Something like that. Your proposal is to raise minimum wage to $23 an hour. How would that work under your system? Because that, to me, that's a really big jump. I'm not saying that the minimum wage shouldn't go up. I absolutely agree that it should. But wouldn't it cause other issues as well? How would that look for you?
No, I'm going to tell you how it works. It really does. Because number one, even though New York is making $50 an hour, again, there are New Yorkers living in poverty, because again, that is not a livable wage. That's a minimum standard. Like minimum you got to pay is $15. And then from there,
Oh,
you
gosh,
go
yeah.
up. And you can go
Even
up.
more than
You
that,
can go
yeah.
up from that point. Right. I'm focused more on making sure that minimum wage really reflects livable wage. As we know, inflation is through the roof right now. And here's the kicker. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. Matter of fact, they're talking about that the Treasury is going to have to increase some more money out here, which is going to do what? Just raise it right on up anyways. And so the reality is that inflation is not going down. It's one
No, it's not.
it is. Let's be economically smart. Let's be economically honest. Inflation will continue to go up. There are going to be a lot of things. If you think now is unaffordable, wait till about two years. I'll give you about 2 years from now. 2 years from now, wait till what it looks like again. So how does this work? First off, when I say giving us a livable wage, and yes, the beauty of talking with Lord Self is that he is a small business owner himself. So we're going to talk about, I'm throwing these words out because these are words that are going to come into this conversation. So let's start with the minimum wage first. So we can go to $23 an hour today because, as I've highlighted in some of the conversations you saw online, is that there are plenty of corporations today that can pay $23 an hour. Here's who: Walmart can pay $23 an hour. Target already has put out a whole article out loud saying we're going to raise our minimum wage to $24 an hour.
Oh, wow.
Look it up.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah, they've already announced it. But see, Target is understanding we have the money so we can do this. And so Target can do it right now. McDonald's, everybody's so mad at McDonald's. Guess what McDonald's can do? They can afford to pay their employees a livable wage. The people who can't or may have some struggles to meet this standard is our small businesses. And that's why if you listen to our conversation with me and Sel, I highlight the fact that, yes, I'm also prepared to do what has not been done for a very long time in our federal and state constitution, which is reclassify and redefine what is a small business. I don't think people realize what the definition today is of a small business. Small business definition today is that you have 500 employees. Woo, that's like
a lot of people.
That's like a GM manufacturing plant right now. That is not a small business, sir. Small business, in my definition, is mom and pop shops, local startup entrepreneur youth style business where you have less than maybe 20 to 30 employees total max or less at this point. What Self also revealed to me, which I've also been talking with fellow small business about, is that they do want to pay their employees more money. The problem for them: taxes, payroll tax, healthcare tax, this kind of tax, that kind of tax. And as you listen to that interview, Self admits that to me, that if he didn't have to pay the taxes, he could pay $15 to $20 an hour easily for his employees without bankrupting his home. Because that's the thing too. A lot of small business owners, again, they're not like the Fortune 500 corporations. They're not getting a paycheck off of the net profit revenues and gross earned income. They're getting a paycheck after they done paid everybody, paid for everything that the business needs, supplies, equipment, everything else, and what's left over after they done paid their taxes and everything as well on their income. That's what they truly bring home. So I don't want to diminish the owner's income no more than I want to diminish the employee's income. And that's why in the state of Tennessee, when I say raise the minimum wage to $23 an hour, I'm really talking about those Fortune 500 corporations that can do that today. What we will then do is we will tier the small business category. Once we reclassify small business under Tennessee Constitution in our state, that is what I think we're going to give a lot of small business a woosah, because they're going to realize I'm not talking about you. What I'm talking about for you all, though, is we got to get to at least the minimum of $15 rate so that we can at least give people some form of affordability. That's where we can use what? That instead of using $500 million on our baseball stadium, that's how I get to pull that money back and say, no, now I can realize this funding or some of this funding, because it's $500 million. It's a few million that we can put around some places. But I can realize some money back into the small business aspect of our minimum wage payment rate that I'm changing to, and using that money as supplement income to support reaching those goals of creating livable pay raises and minimum pay raise standards for our small business. So, for example, what am I saying in total genre is basically nano capital and nano loan grants will now go directly to small businesses, because what we did was we reclassified that definition. And now we know for a fact that the money we give when we have, quote unquote, I don't like using the title PPP loans. That's really what it was. Nano capital is different. It's a little bit different. It's more like an investment to help grow your income in your business. And so what we can do now is create those nano capital loans and grants. And that would allow for our small businesses to have access to the income they didn't have the first time around. So meaning now that we reclassify the definition of small business, Now, your local Black business that has 10 employees will get that funding directly, because we know for a fact, in order for you to get access to this nano capital, you first got to meet the standard of a small business. So McDonald's won't be able to apply for this money because McDonald's, you don't meet the standard. Wendy's, you won't be able to you won't be able to get this kind of money. Sam, you won't be able to get access to this type of money because, again, you don't meet the definition of our small business. This money will be strictly for small businesses and only for small business. And so that's one of the things with the tax cuts, as well as creating an avenue directly for nano capital and loans and grants to small businesses, are the ways that we can help protect small business. But here's the last key factor to it all. At the end of the day, I had to create a whole administration of strictly of small business people. That's really how we get this solved. Because I have nonprofits. It's a different kind of game with nonprofit to a for-profit small business. And so what I have to do is bring in people like Self. I have to bring in people that I know locally, like Tanika Harper and DJ Harper, folks like that. I have to bring in the Keisha Keys and folks in my community. I'm sure you got some names you can think of. People. These are the people that have to come to the table now and tell me, as their person with the pen and the money, how do we do this? I don't know all the answers. I'm offering a solution. Now, you who do this every single day of your life, tell me the best model that we can use to support all small business in our state that will make our income more increased or influent for the daily basic needs that we talked about, the human basic needs of your employees in your businesses. That way we can maintain our stronghold in our corporations that says, no, you're going to pay 23 because we know you can. But for my small businesses, what are the exceptions? What are the standards? What are the models? How do we get this to you? How do we get this out of this person's hand? Or how do we make sure that this guy that's cool with this state legislator, but he's got a Fortune 500 company out in California trying to set up shop in Tennessee, doesn't push you out or bump you out, or more importantly, make it even more impossible for you to be able to meet the standards of minimum wage rates because they're bringing in their big manufacturing company, getting excessive tax dollars off top because they're friends with the right person in our state legislature. So that's to me the last big fact, right? That happens a lot, right?
Damn,
so
you hit that on the head.
Yeah, because we know it happens. We know it happens. And so that's the real, to me, like the really, that's the star. That is the star. We have to bring small business owners to the table directly to talk to us. How do we make this best? And like I said, I'm not talking about my friends and my homies. I'm talking about real mom and pop shop owners to the table.
So how do you have that power as a governor? Will you do that through executive order? How would that work as far as reclassifying small business? How does that work? What would be the step to doing that?
Yeah, I'm sure there is a process to it. As I said before, I have not done I'll admit this, I have not done the due diligence to look at how do you amend the Constitution in the state of Tennessee. Surely it's a Google away. But for our viewers, please go ahead and Google it. Drop it in the chat. I'm willing to look into that. I've been focusing more around who's going to pay that minimum wage rate.
For sure.
And like I said before, talking to small business owners about this type of change and what is something up front you can tell me today that needs to happen to ensure that your company could meet some form of the standard. Like I said, we're going to tier it off. Tiering it off means that if you're a Fortune 500 company, you're paying a $23 hour rate. Okay, now once we filter that tier on down and we get to, like I said, more of the small business standards, I want to make it 30 employees or less. Now we're going to talk to you guys. Okay, how do we get to 15, maybe $20 an hour in your group? And as Self has already revealed to me, one of the big ones for him is cutting the payroll taxes down. If he told me that in the interview, go back and listen, you will hear him say clearly that if I didn't have to pay all these taxes, I could easily pay my employees $20 an hour.
Oh, no, for sure. No, I listened to it. I listened to it about 3 times. No, that made more sense. I just kind of wanted my audience to get that gauge because that's a question that I get a lot. And that's a question economically. And see, the thing about these issues is good to have. I have friends that are very strong on the social issues, but they have no economic awareness whatsoever. And so you have to be able to combine the economic with the social. Otherwise, it doesn't really work out and you're not as well-rounded in it because otherwise it's just a good idea. Like it has to be implemented some kind of way.
Yeah, and I want to throw in one last tidbit of a small business owner. I don't know, this was a few years ago. I have to go look up the actual name of the guy. But a while ago, people remember there was a lot of big news. There was a small business owner. He had like 30 employees or less, but his company's annual revenue was really good. Like they were in the millionaire status of it all. But the key thing was that He took a personal pay cut to improve his employees' lives, because apparently the story goes is that he was the guy that took like a pay cut and like paid all his employees $70,000 a year annual income, and like that brought him down from like I think he was making quite a bit, but it brought him down even like to 70K. Like in order for him to pay all his 30 employees $70,000 a year, he would have to come down to $70,000 a year, and he did that. Though here's the kicker: he did do it. But the way the story unfolds is that apparently he had a very good employee. Just one of his star employees, like that's my employee. Like if I know I need somebody to get the job done, that's the employee to get it done. But he was noticing not a necessary reduction in his employees' work, but it was just like the availability. Something was off, and he knew it. So he was like, he went to his employees like, "Hey, what's wrong? Like, I just noticed some things are different. Tell me what's going on." And the employee expressed to him that basically they were going through a financial struggle, and it was really stressing them out. So then he asked the employee, "Well, what can I do? What can I do as a boss?" He was one of those. He was really big on his work climate, been always in the most positive vibe of lifting vibe for his employees. So when he saw an employee down, he was quick to ask, "What can I do as the owner of this company to make this a better work environment for you?" And the employee told him, "I need a livable wage, or I need an increase in my pay." And he was like, like he didn't say no. He's like, "Okay, I have to think about that. I might have to go look at some things." And he did. He went and looked at his books. He realized that he was taking the majority of the revenue of the company, which, as we already talked about, though, he's a good boss, because he realized, okay, I don't want to be eating up all the revenue when one of my star employees is telling me they're having a financial struggle, and it's really honestly because me. I'm eating up all the money. And so he came back to that employee and he gave her the raise and increased her income to $70,000, which helped her a lot because it was like double. I think at that time in the article it states she might be making like 30 or 40,000. So he gave her at least a 25 or greater income raise to her annual income. But what he did was he said, "You know what? If she's going through it, that means probably all my employees going through it." So he raised everybody's income up to $70,000 a year. And like I said, it made him have to take a pay cut too, but he was okay with that because he was more worried about his employees' well-being. He was more worried about his employees having their needs met and their necessity of their homes taken care of. And more importantly, he knew that if I invest in my people, what's going to happen? They're going to overproduce for me. And so he did that. I won't say the article was back maybe like in 2015, 2016. I recently saw like an updated article a year or so ago because my mom was the one to talk about it. Actually, my mom's she's the one put me onto it. Like, look at this guy. But I looked at the updated story that was put out maybe like a year or two ago about him. And today he's back to being able to claim $1.5 million in his own personal revenue. He has continued to increase all his employees' pay. But the kicker is his numbers are at the highest they've ever been in productivity. His revenue is up as high as it's ever been since he started his company. His climate of his work environment is amazing, excellent. People want to come work for him, not because, "Oh God, I got to be here. This is the only way I'm going to eat." They want to come to work. They perform like they want to be at work. And overall, he just has a very healthy work environment, work climate. And he admits to it that it all is because he made a personal sacrifice for the greater good of his company, which was his biggest investment, his employees. So don't tell me it's not possible. It is possible. We all got to do something that we're not used to doing as human beings. We got to make some personal sacrifices. We got to stop being so selfish. And we got to be, more importantly, the biggest one, stop being too damn greedy.
I love that message. And a lot of what you said, the people who are giving you pushback, it seems like they're almost contradicting themselves because they told you previously, they talk about accountability and stuff. That's exactly what it sounds like you're saying too. So I don't see where they try to put you on an island and make it seem like your ideas are so whimsical or out of this world. I did want to talk about something. You talk about $60,000 minimum for a teacher in the state of Tennessee, right? Could you talk a little bit more about your education plan?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, the first thing I want to say about education is that I don't like the way we're doing education. We're doing like a lottery draft pick now. Children are being children because that's what it is. It's like a lottery draft pick. I swear, it's like the number one pick of the group is, you know what I'm saying, and it's not right. Because here's my thing about education. Number one is that children are not a lottery draft pick. Let me explain something about me, because I do believe that's an advantage I have as an activist, as a human rights fighter, and as a human rights servant. I serve human rights with my nonprofits all day, every day, 365 days, 7 days a week of my life for the last 17 years now. And so to me, when I make a decision, my decisions are always based off of who will be the greatest harm. Not who's the greatest beneficiary, who's the greatest harm. And with our current style of education, especially in Tennessee, like Tennessee is a personal spot for this particular matter because we're trying to do crazy things in education. And what I'm concerned with is our state legislator and the current incumbent are not acknowledging the fact that you are sacrificing children. That's the sacrificial lamb. The children are sacrificed. And so to me, why are we talking about, oh, we're going to start this charter school over here, or we're going to start that trade school over there, or we're going to bring this apprenticeship over here? No, wrong answer already. Because every child deserves accessibility to quality, high quality education. And I'm going to tell you why I'm like that about education, especially for our children, because here's why, Kiko. They're the future. They're going to be the governor one day. They're going to be the state legislators one day. They're going to be the nonprofit directors and founders one day. They're going to be the corporate CEOs and small business owners. And if we don't prepare them appropriately with the right tools, because we were treating their education as if it was an optional program or a lottery pick, then this is what we're going to get. We're going to continue to be in this rut that we're trapped in, a cycle right now, because we're refusing to tell the truth to our children, and we're refusing to give them all the accessibility, academia, success tools, and keys to achieve their dreams. So in my program, Tennessee, every school, I don't care if it's private, I don't care if it's public, I don't care if it's charter, every school will have STEM program, apprenticeship program, and trade school program. Because again, this is not about me and you, the adults. It's about our children. And I want every child to be able to say whatever they want to be, they have it right there at their school, or they have access to it through the school, because school to me is a wraparound care center. It's not a prison to school pipeline. It's not supposed to be doing that. It's supposed to be a wraparound care center that caters strictly to education, empowerment, and success of our children, and not about, like I said, criminalizing our children as they walk through those doors. As well as it should be the #1 spot for supportive care of our struggling families in need population in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and in our cities and counties around the state. So that's the first one I want to put out there. I am not going to sacrifice our children for personal wealth and personal accumulation of income because people are not considering our children as the sacrificial lamb. So that's my first part. I want to get that out up front. Every school will have apprenticeship, STEM, and trade schools available in it. That's
public or private.
Public, private, I don't care, because the children deserve that. The choice program to me is, what school do you want your kid to go to, Fred? That's really
no doubt, yeah.
Because the schools all have the same thing now. It's not about, oh, I'm picking, because currently what we're doing, that's how we're doing it right now. Choice school actually right now is, I picked this school because they got this, this, and this, versus this school doesn't have this, this,
which is honestly, which is a form of privatization.
Yes, it is. But that's the point. We got to stop that, because children are really the final sacrifice of it all. It's not right for me to tell a little girl who wants to be an astronaut that unfortunately that dream is going to be a little more challenging for you to achieve, because we're not going to put the apprenticeship program or the STEM programming into your school so you can start to do that today. That's not right. And it's not anymore right for me to tell a little boy who wants to be an astronaut, oh, well, you should go to this school because that's everything they got, and guess what, we can help you get in there. No, that has to stop. Our education is not a lottery draft fit of our children's futures. We have to stop doing that. So that's a big one for me. Now, the second one is the payroll. As we were talking earlier, I want to highlight some continued misappropriation of spending. I find it, here's one of the things that when people be like, we don't have the money to pay the teachers. Lie.
That's a lie. I was gonna say something, but it sounds like you're gonna do it about the money not being there. Go ahead.
That's a lie too, because one of the things I want to highlight is how we are bloated spending in certain payrolls of education and others we are not. And here's the big one for me. I find it disturbing when school administrators, so your Knox County School Board or your Davidson County Metro School Board administrator, I find it highly disturbing that their incomes are at $300,000 or more, or
are you serious?
You can't make this up.
That
Look
is
it up.
crazy.
I've looked at the numbers. I looked at the data. We've already pulled the data. We looked at it. And so to me, something's wrong here. Why is a school administrator making $300,000 a year again of taxpayers' dollars? Because this is a government position, this is a government employee position. Why are you making $300,000 a year? As governor, I don't even make that. Governor makes barely at $200,000 a year. So you literally make a whole $100,000 more than me, and I run the whole state. And you down here watching over one little county school system on my behalf. Why are you making that much money? So that's one of the first things I want to start at. I want to go through and cut all this ridiculous bloated payroll we're spending in school administrative roles. Because that's the other thing about administrative. You sit in the office all day. These teachers are in that classroom all day long with those children, trying their best to teach and educate and get the necessary understandings and truth to the children. So again, they are better prepared as adults to do things better than what we are doing right now. So that's the big one for me. We got to cut off the unnecessary spending in payroll. So once we cut those bloated payrolls and get it more down to what I think is appropriate, more around the $90,000, $100,000 range, because you are still an administrator, you do have so many XYZ employees under you. So it is a high-paying management role. That's the appropriate title that it should really be considered. And so to me, what is the appropriate pay for my highest managerial role? Well, to me, that's a livable wage rate. Again, a livable income rate. Again, it's not a bloated rate. I'm not patting you in the back because you want to, or you got chose or selected or voted as my administrator. I'm giving you, again, what is necessary income for your job title and your role, and also paying you for the frustrations and the aggravations and other things you got to deal with. Because again, I'm not about to pull up at Davidson Metro School Board every time there's a problem. No, you're going to figure that out on your own because I pay you to figure that out on your own. Exactly. But this is income that we could then, as I've talked about the model with the owner, this is basically what I'm talking about. Cut the unnecessary spending in these administrative yearly annual incomes. Take that first start there with just that funding. How many teachers can we pay $60,000 a year once we collect across 95 counties of 95 district school board districts and take that additional surplus funding that we collected from those bloated payrolls and now redistribute that back out? I want to say at least probably a third to a fourth of our teachers can be paid off real, just off of the bloated payroll budget cut from the get-go. Then the second factor is, again, as we already spoke, we have a $52 billion budget. We have the money. Let me tell you something about spending. So let me give you some more numbers. In 2022? So 2021, just last year, we spent as a state budget $18,000 in charter and private education. This year, guess how much money we spent this year? And this is how I know we got money to pay the teachers. We spent $28 million this year in charter and private education. So, what are we doing with the money? And what we know we're not doing with the money is paying our teachers. So if you are willing to allot $28+ million just for some charter model that comes from Bill Gates, that's what we ain't talking about yet either. TISA is a Bill Gates model of education.
Oh, yeah.
And we already know that's a privatization of education coming down the pipeline. But if we could take that same money to try to set up privatization of our education, then that's the same money that technically, before we privatize education, we need to pay our teachers first. We need to make sure our classrooms are adequately resourced and supplied first. We need to make sure our lunch ladies are paid a livable wage first. We need to make sure our janitorial sanitation workers are paid first. See, that's the thing. We're not taking, again, we're sacrificing people before we really cover, we sacrifice people for the corporate capitalistic agenda versus taking care of the people first. And then whatever's left over, capitalism can do whatever it wants to do.
That's the ideological divide. See, our approach is bottom up, but see, they don't see it that way. They want to trickle it down,
and it don't work. It don't work.
But see, they never admit that it doesn't work. But that's the excuse that they use. And so, what you're saying is empowering people, the common person, and you would think that that's what the majority of people want. I mean, the statistic you just read: 94% of Tennesseans make less than $200,000 a year. So we fall under that category. So that means that only a handful of people are actually rich, quote unquote.
Right, it is. It is a handful. Literally, it's just a handful. 1% to the 99% is just a handful of people. Like literally, all the wealthy people know each other because that's how small the circle really is. So that's one of the models that we would afford our $60K a year income for our teachers, and more importantly, they deserve it. At the end of the day, this is still a job that requires a degree. As a person who has been through college and you as an educator yourself and have a degree, as we already know, a lot of jobs today only want to pay bachelor degree based people $12 an hour starting. Wow, I paid $40,000 for education, and you're telling me now you're not even going to help me cover the cost of my student loan payment every month. Exactly. To me, that's an insult, because it's like, why do we in this country propagate higher education, if at the end of the day, higher education really is just a piece of paper, because you're not going to pay me the rate that I earn, you're not going to give me the benefits that I earn, and you're not going to give me the resource accessibility I need to be successful at the job you're giving me now to earn the income to cover the cost of my education expense that I just invested in myself. And so to me, that's something wrong with that model too. So yes, I'm all about paying people what I feel like is truly deserved. If you put in the work, you deserve the money. Plain and simple. We go to work. People don't go to work because they love work. People go to work because it's about earning an income to suffice their needs at the end of the day. Because trust and believe, if people didn't have to work, they wouldn't. And honestly, there's something wrong with that? No, I don't think so. Because I think if people didn't work, we would have more time to take care of things like our ozone and our energy issues if we had time to focus on it. I think we would have better politicians and better government and municipal power bodies if we had time to pay attention to who we are putting in office in the first place. I think that if you took care of people's needs, it would heighten their awareness on a lot of things and a lot of other issues that impact our lives. But again, if I keep you work burdened, enslaved and in poverty of labor wages, slave labor wages, and those types of things, and barely have time to look up because you're always worried about the KUB or your light bill that's on your table instead. Obviously, these other things go unseen or untalked about because you're too focused on just trying to make ends meet right now. And so again, something's wrong with, in my opinion, when teachers are not making substantial income to afford their needs of their home, but more importantly, they are one of the first true introductions into the human and adult world for children, because they're the first ones to tell your child, this is how we do certain things. And one of the other things I want to highlight, one of the reasons why I'm so big on bringing in STEM apprenticeships and trade school programs, because I want to get away from programming in school, period. I want school to be more like our Asian counterparts. I know you've done research on the Asian in China, how they do education, but the first 10 years of education in China is strictly about a child learning who they are, which I also call really mental and emotional competency is what they're really practicing over there. Your child their children are first spending it out. When people in America say, learn how to control your emotions, the problem in America is that we never learned that though. No one ever taught us how to control our emotions, because most of our emotion response to things is based out of fear or out of reaction to something, in which i.e. normally leads to some type of violent encounter. So America has never practiced emotional mental competency really ever. I don't recall forgetting any. Do you recall forgetting any? I think the closest thing I can think of that I ever had an experience of emotional and mental competency training in school would be TAG, talented and gifted. Remember TAG? We got to go make those origami shapes and stuff. But it was different. It was a slow down space. To me, that's the only time I can recall ever having emotional mental competency. But even then, it was only the special students, meaning you had to be a high scoring academia student to get access to it. And that's a problem, right? Because why weren't all the kids given that? All children need that mental, emotional competency space and something different other than the general curriculum that they were getting. We all deserve to make origami shapes, not just a few of us.
But again, that it all extends back to the capitalistic system where you're taught to be mechanical, you're taught to be a machine, you're produce for everyone else. You produce, but it's not about your emotional state. It's not about learning about different cultures, being more global. It's all about producing more and more and more and more capital and just expanding that, but you're not growing personally. The businesses are growing around you though. And so, no, I totally get where you're coming from. I want to talk about a couple of other arenas extending on education. I've made the case on several podcasts about the idea of cannabis, legalization of cannabis, and how this is not just a plant. This is not only a scientific issue. We know the benefits scientifically of cannabis, but they keep saying over and over, we need commissions, we need to study it. And I'm saying to myself, how long do you need to study something? A lot of people are smoking marijuana recreationally or for the HIV or for their cancer or for their mental health illnesses. It has a lot of different benefits. Me personally, I wouldn't have finished my PhD if I didn't start taking edibles at the end of my PhD program. It actually made me finish my PhD program. And I can honestly say that because I had depression during my whole program. And I wish I would have known about this earlier in the process, and I may have finished school a lot earlier. But it has a lot of different scientific mental health benefits. And also, when you talk about the criminal justice system, the war on drugs, I could see you being the governor of Tennessee really changing the state of Tennessee for the better when you talk about the green economy, decriminalizing, not only decriminalizing, but getting rid of the Schedule 1 of marijuana, making
Mhm,
it completely legal, helping the
mhm.
economy. Could you speak to kind of like how marijuana is not just a singular issue, but how it branches off into different avenues for people?
Right, right. I want to add one closing thought to our education piece before we go. But
Mm-hmm.
what I was saying about the teachers in program and education and moving away from that, as you know, as an educator, many teachers tell you, you kind of already hit it, but many teachers say that they're limited in expanding our children's education because of the programming model, as you said, which is preparing our children really just to join the capitalistic industry. So that's the other piece I want to add about programming is that I want to expand programming outside of traditional norms because even educators will admit our traditional norms are not meeting our children's educational needs. So that's that. Now, cannabis, yes. So three things behind cannabis that I will start with, my bullet points. I've been trained by my team. Bullet points first, then elaborate. So number one, there are three top reasons why I want to legalize cannabis. And you already hit them, but I'm going to highlight them. Number one, yes, cannabis is a plant. It is stupid for people who are selling, growing, using, smoking plant to be sitting in jail with murderers and rapists. It really just does not add up. It makes zero sense. Number two, it is economical advantages. Absolutely. As we are watching fellow states around the country, Colorado, Arizona, Oregon, you name it, we have seen great economical benefit to them moving to a full-scale legalization of what I'm talking about on my platform, full legalization, whether you recreationally or medicinally use it, it's just there. You can use it now. And we've seen the full-scale benefits of those types of state budgeting revenues they've been able to bring in and been able to better use that funding to support their states and their people's needs. And then the third one is what you hit on, the criminalization factor. Absolutely. We have too many people in jail right now just for marijuana. And to me, that's unnecessary space in jail and taxpayers' money right now that's paying to take care of someone who honestly should be at home in the first place. So those are the three reasons behind my full legalization package of cannabis. Now, let's unpack this. Right. So one of the things I had learned or I've been learning as you know, I'm in East Tennessee, which is Appalachia area. And as we know, Appalachia area was hit very hard by the opioid pandemic, the meth pandemic, some of these pandemics. Now, don't be twisted. Tennessee across the state had an issue with this. But we saw in the Appalachia spaces, particularly quite an increase or spike to the users and the people who were showing, being reported through whether the jail or through medical professionals, a report of these users being heavily based in Appalachian community. Now, here's the kicker to this, Kiko. In our statewide tour, because I've started in the East, I'm coming middle and west, starting in the end of basically end of this month on to the rest of the season till November. But one of the things that we were learning while we were door knocking and visiting with the counties in Appalachia, East Tennessee area, is that cannabis was the counter drug for the addiction. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot name it, Pico. I promise you, Pico, from elderly people, I'm talking elderly people like 60, 70, 8-year-old people, all the way, of course, to the young folks in our age group, and etc. But all of them, personal story, I literally have had personal stories that people told me I've been 7 years clean, and it was weed that did it for me. That's how I got clean, man. The weed took away the drive,
Mm-hmm.
the desire for it, just like, and then even them being able to admit how they were able to get back into reproductive lives. Like one of the guys that told me his opioid drug addiction story. He had been clean for 7 years off of opioid. All he did was smoke weed, and he's actually a member of the Iron Workers Union up there in Morgan County. That's where that visit was. It was Morgan County. But that personal story. Then we went and visited Claiborne County, and an elderly lady in her 60s, like 60, 70 area, asked me directly, "Are you going to legalize cannabis?" And I was like, "Absolutely, ma'am."
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Exactly." And then she told me her personal stories of her being addicted to opioids and her children being addicted to opioids, and cannabis was the answer to that. And so what I've heard personal stories of is that when you make a drug, make a plant, because I'm not calling it a drug, it's not a drug, it's a plant. When you make a plant that has the types of well-known medical benefits that we are seeing, not just in our healthcare, but even in our drug addiction space, and you're not making it legal, it's not then at this point, when we hear these elected officials and these government bodies talk about how they want to help the drug pandemic and help folks who struggle with addiction, that's not a true statement. Because if you were serious about that, you would have already legalized cannabis at this point, because cannabis is a clear-cut personal testimony of the people who are dealing with this. So this is a frontline story. This is not me and you guessing. This is people telling us who live this life, have this experience, that cannabis was the answer to their recovery. Then why are you not legalizing at this point? And as we are expressed, we know that one of the top ways of getting people locked up is cannabis. Because, we have it, this has been an issue in the Supreme Court. Talk about Supreme Court, let's talk about it. How Supreme Court had to say, look, because you smell an odor is not a deemable permissible grounds of probable cause to be all up in somebody's car, tearing it apart, and looking for anything you can to criminalize this stop now so you can arrest this person for drug use and addiction. That is one of the things that we saw the Supreme Court say out loud. You can't keep doing that. As we have now seen in the state of Tennessee, for example, we have a form of legalization, but it's not full legalization because it's still CBD based. It's still controlling the level or ranges of THC present. And more importantly, as we know, strands of THC or strands of cannabis have various THC levels that serve various different needs. And so what you may smoke a certain strand and a certain concentration of THC and does great for you may not be the same for me. I might need a whole different type of plant with a whole different type of strand and concentration. So what we are seeing, what we already been talking about, we're seeing a way of, again, trying to clamp down, control, and generalize across the board what is cannabis for everybody, when cannabis is a plant that kind of serves everybody, but in different ways.
In different ways.
And so for me, yes, we know we can save money in our prison, in our incarceration rates. We can probably, I was willing to bet, based off of just some of the data we've seen in places like Oregon, Colorado, and Arizona particularly, who are some of the newer states to legalize cannabis full scale. But what I've been paying attention to is trends. One of the trends that stick out to me the most is like a space like in Arizona, well, not Arizona because they just got started, but more of Colorado and Oregon, I think are really good models for people to look at when you look at cannabis conversation and legalization of it, is that in both of these states, they both saw at least a 20% increase in crime, period, in their states. And more importantly, in their incarceration rate, they saw more like roughly about over a 30% drop in incarceration rate. So what do we see happening? One, cannabis stopped being illegal. So traffic stops now that may have smelled like weed or whatever are no longer deemed for a purpose of arrest. The second thing we saw also was that, as we already know, something that if you look at areas like Poland and Finland, areas where they kind of made full legalization of drugs, period, across the board.
Portugal too.
Yeah, it's Portugal, exactly. What you see is that when you tell somebody all of a sudden you can do this and it's legal now, people seem to lose interest really fast, don't they? Like, oh, I don't want to do it no more now. It's not fun. Right, the fun is gone out of it, right? The thrill was getting the drug, using it, and then not getting caught. Now you can use them, when there's no fear to what's going to happen, people lose interest in it all suddenly. And so it's like it's a win-win. You're winning because you're reducing the incarceration rate. You're winning because you're reducing the crime violent rate. You're winning because you're reducing the opioid and drug addiction rate. It's like, why, again, as a political leader who has the authority and ability to make this a full-scale legalization therapy, it can become even medical use. As a combat veteran with PTSD, mental health illness, as we know, veterans are advocating for legalization of cannabis because on the federal level, because that's what we fall under as veterans, is that they still haven't made it legal. So you can lose your benefits for using cannabis if you are a veteran. But the problem with that is that veterans are telling the VA, this helps us, not your mental health cocktail that makes me more addicted to opioids. So that's what we don't talk about either, is how when we do treat opioid people, we're treating with another opioid. So all you did was change the prescription. So now instead of being addicted to Prozac, now I'm addicted to Zoloft or something else because it's still an opioid. So you didn't cancel out the opioid in my system. You just introduced me to a new one and continue my addiction, which we already know that's a big pharmaceutical method to keep you buying into their industry.
And that's that's why I think a lot of that has to do with the marijuana resistance. It has nothing to do with, because most people that I know, I don't care how religious they are, how quiet they are, how loud they are. Most people have smoked a joint in their life. if they're 40,
Yeah,
50 years old. I mean, let's just be
yeah.
real. And it's just, these people try to pretend that they're these different kinds of people. And I'm saying to myself, it's weed. Come on. It's like you smoke cigarettes. Are you kidding me?
Right, and that kills you faster. Like you're right. Like if you want to look at it, that's another factor. Let's talk about how many deaths weed is caused. Let's talk about how many heart attacks weed has caused. Let's talk about how much cancer weed is caused, which we know it doesn't cause cancer because it's a counter treatment for cancer. So
Hmm.
let's really talk about what is legal that is, if it's just as deadly, if not more deadly than weed that you can't buy right now. But at the same time, you can't use this plant that heals you. So what is the message that we're really sending out? Oh, we want you to
Hmm.
kill yourself, not heal yourself. So yeah,
Hmm.
so that's just some of the concepts around cannabis for me. Like I said, I want to legalize it because, again, like we said, it's stupid. It's a plant. No need for it to be illegal. There's definitely economical gain for us as a statewide for our revenue needs and our budget needs. And the third factor is we're addressing many issues in criminalization as far as with the drug addiction, our jail and our jail rate, our lockup rate, and as well as the fact, again, our police officers need to be focused on real crime, not on smelling weed odors in people's cars.
For sure. Um, Before I talk a little bit about the poor people campaign, because I don't know exactly what that is. Like
Mhm,
I've seen it on your site quite a bit, and I've heard you mention
mhm,
it a lot.
mhm.
What exactly is your view about the whole idea of police? Because I know I saw in your campaign about where you don't believe in police being in the schools, and I don't either. I don't see the point of having
Yeah.
police in the schools because when me and
Mhm.
you were growing up, I don't remember
We
that
didn't
ever
have
being a
police. We
situation.
didn't have that.
That was
Yeah, we
never a
did. We didn't
thing.
have it.
I don't know when that happened, the implementation of police in the schools, but how do we allocate all that unnecessary money going to the police department into other areas that we've talked about, infrastructure, education, um, making a green economy or making it more viable for us? Uh, how do we go about that with the police? Like, do you think you're going to get resistance from possible voters when you talk about? Can you explain that to people that you're not trying to abolish the police necessarily? Like, I'll let you say it more than me. What's your view on
Yeah.
that?
So you want to talk about public safety now? Okay, let's jump into public safety right now. Yes. Uh, so as we already know, police budgets around the country, no matter what city or state you're in, those are normally some of the most bloated, highly funded taxpayer budget line items in our country. Period. Across the state, across the counties. Like I said, even we saw recently Joe Biden, no more money for police. You see what I'm saying? So, and again, look at our DOD, look at our Department of Defense funding. Again, we are definitely heavily invested as taxpayers into the police state of our country. We're
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
into that. And so to me, when we talk about police, we have to talk about, unfortunately, the harsh truth of police. We have to do that because America has done a great job at putting police in this hero pedestal narrative. But the truth is, for a lot of Americans, police are America's worst nightmare, true encounter. And it really is that. As we've now seen, as I think Will Smith, I know some people may feel some type of way about Will Smith, but Will Smith said some real things. And one of the things he said I agree with was that police officers have always been, it's not that police officers are more brutal, more violent. It's that we have more technology to show these violent and brutal encounters. It was
Hmm.
always there. Again, let's talk about police. We'll start where it started at. Where did police come from? How did we get here? Slave catchers.
The
That's where they
patrols.
started at.
Hmm.
They were slave patrollers. And
Hmm.
then when we moved from slavery being, or the emancipation proclamation, Juneteenth, all that happens, now we got to retitle these people because we don't want to get rid of them because, quote unquote, what people need to understand, America's always been a giant plantation. We never left slavery. We just
Get that
decriminalized it,
right.
renamed it, rephased it, put a new mask on top of it. But we honestly never left the plantation in America. And so that's what you see with the police. It started in the slavery area, but it has modernized itself right along with America's plantation concept because that is what they have always used as quote unquote the control. Remember, in segregation, it was what was it? Jim Crow now, Jim Crow forever. But when John F. Kennedy said, "Oh no, it's over with for real. Everybody can get the same lunch counter." What did you hear next? Law and order started being the
Oh,
new
of course.
terminology,
Yeah,
which is
definitely.
still segregation and slavery at the same time. It's just again new language, same concept. And
Yep.
so what we have in our police departments, we never cleaned it up. No one never, what J.F. Kennedy didn't do, that's where he messed up at. Yeah, you did a great job of saying, okay, yeah, it doesn't make any sense for a Black person to go to the back of the door when everybody's going to the front. No, everybody goes to the front. But what he also didn't, what he forgot to do, him and his brother Robert, was to say the police departments, y'all got to clean y'all act up now too. Now we got to go through every police department in America so we can filter out these race soldiers, because we know Klan members were heavily involved in what? The police department. Before it was the Klan, who was before that? The Blue Bloods. Remember the Irish folks? They filtered into it. And the agenda was always the same. Brutalize, beat people up, especially Black people, poor people, or anyone that the rich guys that pay them tell them, go get them people. That's what they always have been. They are a hired gang. And people don't like to say that, but it is. Just like when people say, well, you're the military. Guess what? The military is a hired gang. It's a more specialized gang. Actually, it's a level up. It's the gang that comes in when the gang on the ground can't handle it. You call them the big dog gang. Matter of fact, call the military the mafia. Basically, like when the gangsters that work for the mafia can't handle it, that's when the mafia really step in. That's when the boss come in and say, okay, I got to deal with this now. That's what the military is. And so the issue that I have with police is that, again, what we already been talking about, accountability. One, we need to end police immunity laws. And here's what I say about police immunity laws. As a person who's been in combat, as a veteran, as a person who had to live under DOD and the Constitution and other things of our ranks, is that we had escalation of force, we had rules of engagement, we had our our JAG. You know, we had a lot of clauses to us. So in the military, even in a war, you couldn't just run out there and just start shooting your gun off. That would be absolutely Fort Leonardburg making Big Rock, Little Rock status immediately by a court martial, because that's a violation of our rules of our handguns, of our weaponry. Escalation force is pretty simple. I can't be no more dangerous to you than you are to me. So if you have a knife, I can't pull out a gun. If you got a gun, then I can match a gun. Or I can pull out a knife, I can pull out mace. But that's the point. I cannot be any more of a deadly force to you than you are to me. That's escalation of force. Rules of engagement. Now, what a lot of people don't know, and if you talk to a veteran, they'll tell you, here's what rules of engagement state. Rules of engagement says that before I shoot my gun back at you, meaning letting a round downfield in my personal defense or my comrade's defense, you get a free shot at me first. You get to shoot a whole shot at me first before I can ever shoot back at you. And you know why they do that? Because you got to make sure, right? Just because you point a gun at me doesn't mean you're going to shoot it at me. Just because you pull out a knife doesn't mean you're going to stab or cut me with it either. Just because you open up a can of mace doesn't mean you're about to spray the whole room. So I actually have to wait for your action to say, when I did what I did, it was justified because you were the assailant. You were the attacker. You were the aggressor. And so if you pull your gun out but you don't shoot, there's no need for me to pull a gun out or do anything, or for that matter, my engagement with you is not to kill you. It is to now figure out how we're going to take you down because you didn't actually use the gun to quote unquote engage me. So that's the thing. And what we see in our police departments in America, you don't see any strictness to how they engage that gun. It's like the first thing they always go to. It's the first thing they go to. And even in the military, there's a shot chart. In the military, you have a shot chart. In the military, my first 2 to 3 shots are warning shots. Let you know we are armed too. And at this point, I am telling you to put your weapons of choice of defense down. Otherwise, this will escalate in my shooting. Once I give you 3 warning shots and you continue to shoot or whatever you're doing to engage us, I then get to give you what is called a flesh wound or a flesh shot. Meaning I can shoot you in your foot or your leg. It's a shot below your knee, literally. And it's
not to kill you.
It doesn't kill people. Exactly. It doesn't kill you. It just disables you. If you continue, even if I shoot you in the foot, you continue to keep busting your gun. I get to move up a little higher. It's still not a kill shot. Now I get to shoot you more like in your thigh area or something of that nature. Again, still not a kill shot. If you continue to shoot, now I get to make shot center masking up. And now this is where I'm approved to take a kill shot. Now think about how many rounds of ammo you shot at me before I ever got to my kill shot. In American police departments, where do you see that at? Do you see them actually practice a disabled shot, warning shot? Or do you always see a kill shot? How about the taser? What about the mace? What about the baton? How about the dog? You see what I'm saying? Like, you have a lot of, actually, in my opinion, police have more weapons than we do in the military, quote unquote, when it comes to disengaging someone.
100%.
In the military, we pretty much got a gun, some tank. We got stuff to take you out. But as far as when it comes to like human disengagement, the police have more tools for that than we do. And the fact that the police officer's first initial response to someone with a gun is to pull out a gun and then not even confirm they got a gun or confirm they using the gun as a form of engagement to them, and they're just able to fire it off and be shot. And then the law, the Constitution of this country written in a bypass for that to say, oh, well, he was working in line of duty. He had to make a drastic decision less than 3 seconds. And so therefore, he's excused for his actions. No, sir, because you are a grown man or woman and y'all be killing children at this point. So I'm supposed to believe as a grown man, as a grown woman, that this child that's 9, 10, or 11, or 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, as we know science, as we already spoke to, as I said, children's brains are not ready yet to make these rational decisions. But I'm supposed to believe this child is supposed to respond more rationally in a very tense confrontational situation than your grown ass. Nah, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying it. And that's the way to excuse accountability of adults. So in my platform, we're going to restore accountability to adults. It's not about being a police officer. It's about you being an adult and you being accountable and responsible for the decisions you make in your line of work as an adult.
You talked a lot then about, it's interesting. You mentioned qualified immunity, ending qualified immunity. I think is very odd because you're a big proponent of unions and I am too. It seems like the union leadership has weakened so much across our industries. But the one industry where unions are very strong are in the police departments.
FOP,
and
I know.
Do you notice how that is? It's funny how they unionize when they see it convenient, but it's not to benefit us. It's actually harming us. It's the exact opposite intended purpose. And that's going to be a huge step moving forward in this country, is ending qualified immunity. Even the Libertarian Party as a whole is for ending qualified immunity, something that the quote unquote the Democrats won't even bring up.
They won't even touch it. Yeah, they won't even touch it.
Which is crazy because it goes into the whole defund the police conversation and stuff. And that's why I tell my friends, please don't get too proud of yourself as far as like your views, because you think you're on one side when you're really not on that side. There's a lot of nuance to these issues. That's why it's good to sit down and talk to different kinds of people and realize what can we do together to advance causes. And this is one of those issues where I believe you can get a lot of support from libertarian-minded people, not necessarily Democrats. You can get a lot of support just from that issue. They talk about government. Okay, you don't want the government to be huge. How can this socialist promote something that's decreasing the size of government? Well, this is one of those issues where we're not trying to blow up the government. We're trying to make the government smaller in unnecessary areas.
Right.
So you can definitely, you can reach that message, I think, across a lot of different constituents.
Right. And here's one of the other things I want to bring up, because I have actually spoken with a few, and I say few, I'm talking about police people. Or I think one or two of the guys I spoke with is a member of the FOP, like a ranking member in the union itself. And the interesting factor is they don't necessarily disagree with me. They don't disagree with me about holding the adult population of the police department accountable for their actions. They're willing to admit that, yes, some people be running around here and making some very foolish decisions and they ain't got nothing to do with the police. It's a mindset of them as an adult. And then we know that, right? We know as adults, when you meet somebody that's 35 and they be acting like they're 20, you be like, yeah, you didn't grow up yet. Your mind ain't right. We know that, right? And so with that being said, though, yes, there's still pushback to immunity because they want to stand stronghold on, well, you have to make rational decisions in any given moment. Well, that's the problem, because then when you tell me that I have to make a rational decision in any given moment, that speaks to me, in my opinion, to your training at this point. Why are you so anxious? Why are you so antsy? Why are you so hyped? And as again, I'm speaking as someone who's been in combat. When we went into engagements into some of those spaces that we knew there was a possible confrontation, let me tell you something about me, Kiko. Calm. A lot of people is calm. You know why? Because it's like auto. Like the military is so great at training you, it's like automatic. You don't feel hyped up. You don't feel anxiety in these moments. You feel, unfortunately, an awkward state of calmness, because you're like, whatever happens, your brain is already programmed to respond one way or another. And so to me, that is the problem. And, you know, this is why I tell people, if you're scared, you should not be a police officer, because a police officer's job is scary. So if you're easily frightened, if you're easily afraid, if your anxiety approaches before anything happens, then this is not the line of work for you. And so if you look at my policy, going back to my policy aspect, this is why I said we need to raise the age of the police department in hiring as 27 years old. You should not be able to come out of high school and be able to come into the police department, because my granddaddy was a police chief in the 1970s, and be able to take a job, even though you are absolutely unqualified, sir. Because here, or ma'am, because here's why. You're 18 years old. What is your emotional competency level? Are you able to truly look at someone, determine what is deemed as a person actively being a threat versus someone who's just minding their business, walking down a sidewalk and not engaging or doing anyone to anyone? Or more importantly, again, when something happens, because size, we know people grow, 18 to a 28-year-old is a different type of size ability too. So if you're a small person, are you always gonna be grabbing your gun because the first thing you think is not about, oh, they're threatening me, oh, I'm small, so I feel threatened at this point. It's a difference. So to me, that's why we have to increase the age limit, because it's about mental capacity, it's about size and capability, and more importantly, actual life experiences to help shape in your encounters with people, so you're not responding like a kid, you're responding like what? An adult. That's the biggest key. The other thing is that you look at my policies I talk about having some educational requirements in this background. Again, an 18-year-old has no idea about policing, criminal justice, laws, regulations, Bill of Rights, amendments. You don't have a background. And that's why you find, if you have looked at the ACLU, they did a study a while back and found out that roughly about 98% of the time when you have an encounter with a cop, he violates some form of your constitutional right every single time. And you know why? Because they don't know. They don't know. So to me, you need to have some background in this. Again, this is why we should have apprenticeships in trade school program. Because guess what we get to bring in? We get to bring in cops into this now. You want to be a cop? Okay, I'm going to show you the life and day of a cop kid if you really want to do it. That's why we need those programs in our schools, so that kids can see the careers you want to be. This is what it looks like. And that's an economical saving too for families, right? When we talk about cost press, this is a way we save families a lot of money if kids are getting the opportunities through the school to have these insights to these careers. So to me, education should be here. You should know a little bit about the law. You should know a little bit about the Constitution. Same thing they did for us in the military. I know a lot about my amendment rights and my Bill of Rights. I've read the Constitution quite a few times, and I also know how to look through the Constitution. You know, it's like a dictionary. It's kind of designed in that method, right? Like you want to look at something, you look at the number, you go find it on the page, you look it up. So, you know, we need, if you're going to be in criminal justice or in the justice system period, you do need to have some type of understanding background to the knowledge base of what the criminal justice actually is in America and in your state and in your county and in your community. It is a must. You have to have understanding. That's why I said you need to have a 2-year or a 4-year degree. I didn't say make it, you got to go to college with a criminal justice degree. I'm telling you, go 2 years to your local community university, community school, community college, and access 2 years worth of criminal justice education materials and requirements from educators like yourself who have a greater understanding of what it is, because your job is to teach it. You don't work with it, but it is your job to help people understand and educate themselves to what these philosophies, principles, and interpretations really mean. And so therefore, if you come in at an older age, with more maturity and understanding life experiences under your belt, also strapped with the knowledge base, how much different do you think we would have in police interactions with the public, period? Whether you like me or not, it's going to be a different encounter, period, because your brain is operating under another level of what? Understanding. So what did I just do for you? I elevated your mindset to make you a better employee for your job. That's why also, as well, I think it's important, if you look at my philosophies, let me tell you something off real. My philosophies around public safety are directly tied to my military background. So I want people to understand that. What I am giving you is some of the things that are required in the military. So it's not like I just, kind of woke up, like you said, as a socialist, it's like, I'm never going to go after the police, or as they yell, the police hater. No, I said, I also have a background in this work. And what we did in the military is way more functional and more successful in its approach and in its encounter and practice, because again, the military spends a lot of time doing what I'm talking about doing, which is training and educating your role. So you understand that when they say I'm court-martialing you, you already know before you get court-martialed exactly why you're being court-martialed, because you know the rules and regulations up front. So when I say, Kiko, we got a problem, I'm going to go and bring you in here. We're going to probably have a write-up or even whatever the reprimand is for your actions. Kiko ain't going to walk in there like, man, I don't know what's going on. Kiko like, man, I knew that wasn't going to slide because I already knew you can't do that in the first place. Exactly. That's why I require a mental health and physical evaluation twice a year. Because again, at the end of the day, you're still a human being. Kiko, you're still a human being, right? So if Kiko at home is having problems with his wife and his children, and now he got to come on this clock and clock in for work, because that's the thing that people can't forget. Cops is just an employment status. You don't have to be a cop. You can quit tomorrow and go work at the local manufacturing plant if you wanted to. It's not a requirement to be here. So if Kiko got issues at home with his family, now he got to come into his job, which is a customer service job, really, if you think about it. He got to deal with people all day long and their issues and their needs. And his job is to figure out how to serve those to the best of his ability, of his department resources and funding. Then Kiko's going to do what? He's going to come into work, probably cussing out his coworkers, going down the street, cussing out people left and right. And the kicker is Kiko's not mad at his coworkers or someone in the street. He's mad at his wife because she's trying to figure out why he thought it was appropriate to spend some money that they had in their savings account on a jet ski this summer instead of spending it maybe on the family vacation. That's what's bothering Kiko. But Kiko won't tell us that. So I got to put Kiko on evaluation and let him tell the doctor that. The doctor's like, Kiko, you know, I saw you 6 months ago, you were in great mood and these and that and the third, but I'm looking at your chart, I'm looking at you today, and I'm seeing there's some things that's different here. Let's unpack this. What's wrong? What's wrong? Because we want you to be the best officer in the streets possible. And we can't have the best officer in the street if your mind is not right, if your body is not physically healthy and well, if your healthcare insurance is not meeting the needs of your current medical condition, then Kiko's not fit for work today, and he's definitely not fit to encounter people in our streets. So that's one of the other requirements I have. And then, of course, the last one is, yes, as we talked about earlier, we know police budgeting is way over bloated. For example, let me give you an example. In my city, my Bedford Police Department has a line item where they spend $300 million on unmarked cars. Now, Kiko, what my question is, why do you need $3 million worth of unmarked cars? Because one, police job is not to ride around all day and try to catch people and trap people in crime.
Well, some people are begging to differ.
Right, but their job, you read what an officer's actual job, I don't care what department you look at, one of the first things that's listed in the job description and under their ethos and their oaths that they take is that they are public servants. They are work for the public and for the community. That's their job. So if I am in a situation that may not be criminal, maybe somebody just fell out on the ground and I don't know CPR. Now I need to find somebody to help me like quickly. And you're riding around an unmarked car. I don't know that a cop just rode past me that could have saved someone's life with CPR, because again, when you're a cop, you get basic first aid training. You could have saved a life that day, because your department was so much more worried about riding around trying to catch criminals than actually being a public servant to the community that they are being paid through taxpayer payroll in the first place. Someone died on the pavement when they could have got life-saving CPR, because again, you were more worried about being unmarked than actual marked. To me, that's a problem. When I see officers whose job assignment is really to serve the public, been more concerned about hiding from the public, that means you no longer work for the public now. You're working for another entity that does not serve, unfortunately, our public. So those are the things I'm talking about. I say, let's cut out the budget, because that same $3 million that we spend on unmarked cars, that's $3 million that can go to an alternative response program that's loaded with mental health therapists, clinical specialists, social services folks, drug intervention professionals and experts, that when we get a call in the homeless community that Constance is down there tripping out and we don't know what's wrong with her, instead of having a cop respond who we know 9 to the 10 escalates, not de-escalate the situation, that's who comes now responding to that call, is the new alternative response program who deals with those calls. Because again, we're asking, I want people to understand that, which is something that I know that fellow cops agree with me as well. We're asking a lot of the police. Let's just be honest, we are. We're asking them to be the violence interrupters. We're asking them to be the guys who catch the bad guys in the street. We're asking them to be mental health experts. We're asking them to be the first responders, 911, medical emergency assist. We're asking a lot of them. So it's not fair either. They're not an all-round once response to everything, because some of these things are honestly outside of their career and their profession. To me, let's again use good common sense, and let's bring in people who do have these professions, who do have those degrees, who do have those educational backgrounds and trainings and vocational studies and certifications under their belt to deal with that. I really want police to focus on one thing and one thing only: gun violence, robbers, and rapists. That's all I want them to focus on. Everything else, we're going to fund it towards something else that's under the expertise of people who also went to college, who also spent money on their investment of self, and then let them practice and use that training and knowledge to better do what? Support, upgrade, and uplift our communities.
Well, it sounds like, based on a lot of the stuff you said, and hopefully you can stay on for about 10 more minutes if possible, because I want to get a couple of questions in from social media, and I had a question or two myself. I love that. I was just thinking, the solutions that you brought to the table today and the stuff we've talked about, you wouldn't have the need for many police. I mean, because if people were making their money, people had their bag, and everyone, was able to have their family not split apart because of the drug war and all these other issues. It sounds like to me there wouldn't be as much of a need for the police that are hiding in our neighborhoods disproportionately. And that's a funny thing about it. I have friends that come to me all the time, and I don't want police in my neighborhood unless there's something going on, unless there's an emergency. But just the point of having patrols just every hour, just momentarily going around my block, it's like, that tells you we're wasting taxpayer money. And they're looking for trouble at that point, because like I said, you're trying to get someone for selling drugs on the street. For real? Seriously? Like, the drugs shouldn't be illegal anyway. And so again, it goes into all those things we talked about before, is getting people to sort it, open themselves up to, this has a consequence, that has a consequence. So maybe we need to change the system as a whole, look at it from different perspectives, and not just have this tunnel vision that a lot of these people go in with. Because that tunnel vision that they have presupposes that everything is fine, and it's not fine. Everything is not okay. And we've mentioned the problems and the gaps in these societal ills that we face. I have this particular comment that it made me laugh. I saw it pop up on your Facebook ad that you bought. This person said, "Socialism alert, a vote for this crazy is a vote to put down our guns, our Bibles, and our liberties." How do you respond to these kind of people?
Well, that guy, if you read the comment, I actually did post my campaign to his page. I posted my campaign to his comment, and I asked him on my campaign website or on any campaign material that I produced, where did you see such statements? I actually asked him directly. If you notice, he never responded back because there is no proof. What I want to say to this is that, again, we're programmed. People watch these TV shows, these news reports, even reading it in the media. Again, like I said before, media is extremely biased now. It's not a lot of truth coming out in media. You have to be diligent and really doing research and even finding folks who really print the truth to know truth these days. And so people are taking very inflammatory commentary and narratives and just absorbing it for some reason, not questioning it, actually eating it up, and then regurgitating it back out in very fear-based, unknown, very uneducated outbursts or spewing. And so to me, when I see someone make that type of comment, my first thought is that this person does not do research for self. This person is not investigating the information that they're even receiving for self. And more importantly, unfortunately, as much as people want to act like they're not, you are part of the programming of our media and of our people that control media bases. So our government, we know government controls the media. And so you are actually part of, not say the problem, but you're part of that droning that they've been able to do on the human mindset to tell you anything, and you just believe it. And then you become a puppet at this point, because you're going to go back and just puppet it back out what they said. But again, when you hit them with, well, give me a factual evidence of such thing, they can't do it because you were spitting a lie from the get-go. So to me, when I get approached with those type of comments, I actually challenge them with proving it. Prove your statement. Like, okay, just like you asked me about things about poverty and economics, I can give you facts, 94%, 6%, 30%, 20%. Really show me some data that supports your statement, or show me written language where that came out of my platform saying, this is what I believe and this is what I'm trying to do. If you can't do that, then like I said, at the end of the day, I take it as a program drone speaking out loud without any real background information to what they just said.
Okay, so that, I won't call it a foolish comment, because these people obviously have emotions, and I don't know how politically inclined they are as far as like voting for people. Comment. But it's like you said, whether it's negative or positive publicity, it's still publicity. And and that's a good thing, you know, the fact that you're able to engage because of your experiences. You can engage with just about anyone ideologically. That doesn't affect you. How do you distinguish yourself from people who run as quote unquote Democrats? Because you are running as an independent. And so that's kind of goes to a point I was making earlier. I feel like a lot of people that I associate with, they just don't have the, I guess I won't say the fortitude, but they see the I next to the name of the candidate and they're more hesitant because they're more skeptical of that because they're so programmed to going for the D or for the R. How do you sort of combat that mentality? And what have you seen so far when it comes to that? Like, so what are you running as?
Again, I think how I want to unpackage this comment is that, number one, let me make something very clear. I want to make something very clear. In the state of Tennessee, there are 5.5 million registered voters. In the last election, only 3.5 million of those voters actually won. And the current incumbent actually won off of only 1.3 million votes total for his elected office. Let's run some numbers. Yeah, I'm running numbers for you. So when I see that, so when I see that kind of data, it lets me know that almost a little under half of our state didn't say anything because one way or another, they felt like the candidates that were given to them was not a candidate for them in the first place. So let's just start there. The second thing is that I'm okay with not being everybody's candidate. I want to say that out loud. I'm actually okay for that because I'm not everybody's candidate. I know that about myself. I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican because, again, when it comes to what we said at the beginning of this conversation, when it comes to action, neither party is making action. I'll give you an example. Democrats and Republicans, but I'm going to speak more to the Dems, right? I'm going to really speak to the Dems on this. Are you aware that when Roe versus Wade passed, there is an action even right now that the Congress, basically our Congress, our 500 elected employees is what I call them, our Congress and Senate, they have an ability to turn that decision over right now. Did you know that? It's called an amendment to the Constitution. It's an amendment to the Constitution is what you're calling for. And there is a process. I'm not saying like, overnight. It is a process to it, but there is an action they can take. And what I get frustrated with, and why I said, Democrats don't represent me, it's other things that Democrats have done that doesn't represent me. But I was like, this was to me, if you are a Democrat, period, this should have been the one that broke your back. Because the Democrats did not get on TV and say, hey, America, we can solve this today. This is not the final decision. We can amend our Constitution right now to overturn this decision and make sure constitutionally, permanently for the rest of our lives and for the rest of the existence of our world, that women will have the right to their healthcare needs, regardless of who thinks whatever, because that's not what it's about. It's about your healthcare needs. Did you ever see a Democrat do that?
Of course not.
What would Joe Biden come on TV and say? America, when are we gonna get it together? No, Joe Biden, we gave you the power to pen. When are you gonna use your pen to actually serve the needs of our people? And it's just like with the Democrats putting on the Kensington and taking a knee. Again, why are you performing when I gave you the power to pen? Pick that pen up and write a damn law. Pick that pen up and assign an executive order to do something. Don't sit there and put a performance on and kneel and talk about, we stand with Black Lives Matter when Black people are still being killed. Jalen Walker and Randy Cox are two names that come to mind immediately. So Nancy, y'all did all that performing and only in the end, Black people are still being murdered in our streets. That's what I'm talking about. So that's why I said, if you are still running off of the red and blue model, you are archaic and outdated in your voting model because that's not getting the job done. And to me, that's what separates me from everybody, because I'm not afraid to use the power of the pen. I'm not afraid, if I can't get it done with the pen, to come out loud to the public and say, this is what's going on back here. This is what they're doing right now. This is who's resisting the change that we need to see to fix this problem right now. And so voters, heads up, when the next election for this candidate comes up, we need to be doing everything in our power to get them out of the door. So people, and that's the other thing I thought people understand. Yes, politics is a district and a county and a city and a state. But politics really is a collective nationwide issue. Because if one candidate that represents the Republican Party out of Colorado is a douchebag, don't you think he's probably linking up with fellow douchebags as well in the Republican Party? And now they're becoming this narrative, like Mitch McConnell comes to mind when I think about stuff like this. Like Mitch McConnell is a representative for Kentucky, but he sure did have Trump and all kinds of other Republicans on his bandwagon for the things he did under the Trump administration. So you see how that worked? So all of us who knew as voters that Mitch McConnell was a problem, we should have all been advocating to Kentucky, get him out of office now, because if people like him stay in office, it affects every last one of our lives while he is in office. It wasn't just a Kentucky problem, it was a nationwide problem. And so to me, that's what separates me. I'm going to continue to be an activist in my role, because that's what I am. Like I had to tell one person who made a comment about me identifying as a disabled black combat gay woman veteran. And was like, oh, I was out for it until you talked about your identity. We should be about us. And I had to tell him, I said, no, sir. I said, I have to identify who I am because that's who I am. And that's been authentically true to who I am. I said, matter of fact, presenting myself as anything else is really a lie, not just to you, but to myself. I said, so why would you as a voter want someone to lie to you about their identity, to sacrifice your comfort of me, than to tell you the truth of me and then let you deal with that, whether you accept it or reject it? It's not my job to make you accept or reject me. It's my job to be true to myself and true to you, who I am of myself, so that way you know transparently up front exactly what you're getting. And I said, see, that's the other problem we have in government. That's how we get these lesser of the two evil candidates all the time in our final ballots to select from, because people allow people to wear a mask. People allow people to tell lies. People allow people to be a pretender, a puppet, a fake of themselves, instead of the truth of themselves. And then we go select the lesser to the evil. Here's my problem with all that, Kiko. You still voted for evil. So what did you win?
Yeah.
Nothing. You didn't win anything. You just picked the evil person regardless of the fact. And so to me, that's the problem. I'm going to always be truthful. I'm always going to be transparent. I'm not going to deny that I'm pro-black. I'm not going to deny I'm pro-woman. I'm not going to deny I'm pro-veteran. I'm not going to deny that I'm pro-human rights. I'm not going to deny aspects of myself that are true to me, because that's what I am as your candidate. That's what I am as your governor. I am going to be Constance Every in all aspects of it that I gave to you. And either you accept it or you reject it. And that's on you. But I gave you the true version of me, and I can sleep easy at night, whether win, lose, or draw, because I know for a fact I did not lie about myself, and I stay authentically true to myself, to me.
I tell you what, I think that's an appropriate closing. I don't really have a whole lot of other questions, because you kind of explained like your strategic angle, and I was looking at just the 2018 gubernatorial race with Carl Dean and Bill Lee. And like you said, I think it was only 2.25 million votes total. And I think you were saying that I think you said now it could be close to 6 million possible voters out there for this election.
Yeah. According to the Ballotpedia projection, so this is just a projection, right? But I like Ballotpedia because Ballotpedia is doing what we've been already talking about, kind of keeping voters informed around the country on every race of every candidate. Like I said, in my opinion, Ballotpedia is trying to galvanize voters collectively together. Say, hey, here's a candidate running. Now look at who they are. This is what they're doing. This is what they stand for. And so Ballotpedia has done a projection with Bill Lee's shenanigans and things he's been doing very foolishly, like that apparently, as we saw in the 2020 election season with Trump and Biden, all of them being the final candidates, we saw a massive turnover in voters showing up to the ballot. And the same thing's been predicted for Tennessee. There was some of the last antics out of the administration of Bill Lee with that friend of his from Hillsdale making those inflammatory blasphemy comments about public educators and education. They're expecting to see an increase in voter registration in the state of Tennessee because people seem to be very motivated to get this man out of office. And so that's a projection that they're saying that it may be almost up to 6.3 million registered voters out of 7 million. So that's a good chunk of us. The problem is we got to get them to the ballot. We got to get them to show up. And so what I'm hoping as being something different, as we know, definitely something different, and being someone who's really from the backgrounds of the issues, because that's something else I think that separates me from the candidates to myself. People are great at selling a dream. Like, man, Kiko, I'm gonna make your life better. It's gonna be safe for you and your communities. We're gonna deal with the police now, and all this stuff. We'll make sure your kids go to the best school. But the problem with these people is that they don't live like us, right? Like, you're gonna go back to your fancy mansion or your ducked off luxury suburban community that is not connected or tied with any of the inner city urban lifestyle that we live. And so it's great that you say that you're going to do these things, but my question is, where is your true life experiences to these issues? Or more importantly, what work have you done, like the grassroots nonprofit work that connects you directly to the people dealing with these issues? And far too often, politicians have no idea what they're talking about because they're outsiders looking in. Well, this time I'm an insider. I'm actually an insider sent outside to everybody. This is what we actually need in here to make this really work on the outside to y'all appearances too. Because until we deal with the internal, what you're doing on the outside is never going to matter because you're just dumping in unnecessary resources because you have no idea where it goes. So you call yourself or thinking that you're helping, or as my boy Calvin says, charitable work is what you're doing as a politician, but you should have been doing charitable work before you became a politician because that would tell you the real issues that's going on. So as a politician, you can be more effective, more impactful, and you won't have to do charitable work. You'll be doing change work now. You really be making changes to things that are wrong because you already know up front what is going on. So to me, that's what also separates me. I am the people I'm talking about. I was homeless for 4 years. I've been diagnosed with mental illness for the last 7 years. I live off of my VA disability, fixed income. So that means that I can't have and access everything. So I'm in a lower income bracket. So I know about having to make smart financial cost decisions on, can I buy the milk or do I need to buy this kind of milk because it's a more affordable price and it's still good milk that I can use for my needs in my home. I am aware of those type of decisions that have to be made. So therefore, to me, I am the most appropriate fitted because again, 94% of my state lives in some type of economical crisis. Therefore, what category do you think I'm in? Am I a 1%er or a 94%er? I'm a 94%er. And most of the candidates and even our incumbent, what background are they though? 1%ers. That's the problem. And so we have to even start changing the narrative. So that's another aspect to put out how we can unite under our various different issues for those that are like, oh, you don't represent me. No, I do. Because like I've already said in my comments, as you brought up, if you are making less than $200,000 a year, then I am your candidate because that's the people I'm talking about representing. I don't care about the over 200,000. They're good. We know they're good. I'm trying to figure out how to get the 200,000 to the ranks of what you're living. Because like what you brought up earlier, data shows that when people are living healthy, productive lives that are without stress of cost, without stress of necessity, without stress of how we're going to afford or get resources for our healthcare needs and other necessities of human basic life, data shows us that crime goes down with it because when everyone's healthy and the community is thriving, no one's robbing or stealing each other, you have the reduction in gun violence. You have the reduction in crime, period, robbery. You have reduction in poverty, because that's what it comes down to. If we reduce poverty, we reduce all these service issues that are created by poverty, because poverty is the root problem. It's poverty is driving the issue. If we address poverty, we address healthcare, we address gun violence, we address police brutality, we address poor allotment spending of our taxpayers' dollars, we get great quality education. God, where do we start? Where do we stop at this point? If we just address the root, and that's what I really want to do as Governor of Tennessee. I want to address poverty with our collective tax dollars, but more importantly, not just address poverty like I know what's going on, but address poverty with the things I do know that we can change immediately with my executive power. And then for those more detailed, in-depth conversations like small business and redefining definition of that, bringing the small business owners to the table to control and direct that conversation as well for us.
Well, I'll tell you what, Constance Every, you have Kiko Free Thinkers Forum. You have our endorsement, your endorsement for sure. Like we endorse you, and I'll do my best in my power to get your name out there as well. I urge all my friends who were in the streets 2 summers ago, probably for the first time ever in their life, advocating for a Black man that was killed in an unjust way. I urge you guys to take a serious look at Constance Every on the ballot and stop getting caught up in that blue machine bullshit game and
Yeah.
vote for a person based on what they stand for and not what political party they're in. That's my whole
Right,
thing.
right.
So, how can my audience get in contact with you if they needed to ask you questions directly, or do you have any social media presence?
Yeah, so the campaign is the same across the board. Well, there's small changes, but I think you can look them all up. But the campaign name is TN, which is our initials of our state, the number 4, every, my last name. I'm going to spell it for y'all, EVERY, phonetic for my military folks, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo, Yankee, the number 1. That is the title of the entire campaign. You can find it on Facebook, you can find it on TikTok, you can find it on Twitter, and you can find it on Instagram. That's where our main presence is as far as social media platform. Also, we have a website. So we put in Tennesseeforeveryone.com or Tennessee for Everyone in Google. It should populate you up our website as well. On our website, you see some of the things that me and Kiko talked about, some other things we didn't get to touch on, the environmental aspects and some of my healthcare policies, but it is there. It's all there. If you want to hit me up, you can you go to the website. At the bottom, scroll down, there's a whole link directly to our email that you can access, which is admin@tnforeveryone.com. Or, of course, we got a good old-fashioned Gmail. It's TennesseeForEveryone@gmail.com. Send all your questions. Since the Roe versus Wade thing has popped off lately, our inbox has had an influx of interactions. So I appreciate those who have already reached out to share their thoughts, insights, or ask questions of my opinion of what has happened. And one of the things I think I want to close out with today, kind of ending on that particular note, and kind of going back to what you was talking about, challenging the Democrats and the liberal moderate identity folks, because I didn't get to bring it up, but how, Martin Luther King has already said something about this in his own letters in the Birmingham jail.
They
He already
spent it
talked
for
about the
him.
white moderate and the problem with white
Malcolm and
moderate
all of them.
identity. And all of them have. We have moderate for some time now. Whoa, did my earpiece go out?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
No, you good. You good. I can hear you. We'll see if Constance can get back with us. I think she almost got back in and then she got back out.
Sorry, Kiko.
No, you're good. I can edit that out. It's not a big deal.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all
I was
good.
like, here we go. But I'll close out my final thoughts. Clearly, my phone like time to go. But what I want to close out with, and this is definitely a challenge directly to that moderate group, those libs and those Dems that we're talking about, with the Roe versus Wade decision. Now, I want to highlight something. Black people for some time now have been fighting for human rights. We have. When the women's suffrage movement started, Black women were already on ground in the front lines of fighting for human rights, because as Black people, we were doing that. As we know, Black women will go over and join the women's suffrage movement because, as we learned from Sojourner Truth's infamous speech, "Ain't I a woman too?" is what we understood. See, I think Black people already understood the assignment of human rights and how if we win, everybody wins. But people don't seem to understand that. Some people don't seem to understand that philosophy. Like, if the Black people win, they think somehow us winning is taking something. But as we know, from the era of the women's suffrage movement, and what was the big thing at that time was actually getting Black people voting rights as well. But as we know, Black people got voting rights first, but right after it, who got voting rights too? Women. So it was like, again, we have proven models that when we win, everybody wins. And so looking at the Roe versus Wade, I want to highlight how the white moderate and liberal white people and Democrats and others who protested and participated in those marches for Black struggle with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and many, many others that we have been calling names of. I'm sick of saying names, to be honest, but the names we called out, you all didn't march because you really believed in Black people should deserve rights. You all, a lot of y'all marched to not look racist. And that's a problem in itself.
And to get Trump out.
Right. Because racism is a root core problem of the white ethnicity, Caucasian identity. Your ancestors birthed it, created it, and to this day, you have been able to benefit from it whenever you feel like it, period. And so when you see a decision like Roe versus Wade come down, to what I want to remind those women, particularly the women, because white women are out in full-fledged right now, hot water over Roe versus Wade. But I want to highlight Brittany Griner, because if this was about women's rights, if this was about human rights, if this was about truly saying as American people, the collective us as quote unquote people been trying to say about my choice of saying these are some of my identities I relate to or identify with, then why the hell is Brittany Griner still in Russia? That's my challenge to that. Because if we as women were serious about women's rights, about human rights, about Black rights, then Brittany Griner doesn't even happen. And as well as if we're serious about Brittany Griner, guess what else doesn't happen? Roe versus Wade doesn't happen. Because as our ancestors, Fred Hampton taught us so well, where there is people, there is power. And now what I challenge the people with, whether, like I said, it's not even about me per se running for office, this is about people power. People, you have allowed your power to be diminished because you're easily able to be divided and you become very selfish in issues and concerns. But at the end of the day, as long as you allow one demographic, one person, one identity to suffer from inequitable and unjust and inhumane crimes of humanity, of treatment of human rights, it will always be a threat for your right. And so if you are serious, and this is for any and everybody across the board is listening, if you are serious about human rights, if you are serious about Roe versus Wade, if you are serious about Black rights, if you're serious about humans having the unjust due right to the basic necessities of food, clothing, shelter, and healthcare, education, etc., then you should be screaming at the top of your lungs to return Brittany Griner to America. And I challenge Democrats the most with that because it is your president office, it is your Senate that has the House and the Congress right now under your party's control. And yet I've seen more effort for LGBTQ and trans women being able to swim in the pool with women than I have for Brittany Griner, who also identifies as LGBTQ, who is a prisoner of war and being used as a political ploy for these two different governments, or three if you count Ukraine, over a war that honestly has nothing to do with her nor with us. So if you're serious, I challenge every last one of you at this point to call for the return of Brittany Griner. Now that's the activist in me that I can't deny. I have to call for her return.
I love that. Constance, it's been a pleasure having you on. We could probably talk for 20 hours. I know. But
no, thank you. Thank you so much.
But we're going to close it out. I'm going to link all your stuff into Spotify and all my other channels as well. The Tennessee budget, all your websites, your nonprofits as well.
Nice.
Thanks for talking with Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum today. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much, too.
Thank you so much. We'll keep in touch for sure.
Definitely. And please send our campaign those links and stuff once you get them all set up. We would love to continue to share this conversation.
We will. It'll probably be out tonight. I'll get everything set up and sent out tonight.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, Kiko. Thank you, Middle Tennessee. I'll see all the Nashville, Davidson County, and other folks real soon. And yes, thank you. This was quite an honor, man. This was dope. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, peace.
That was fun. Oh, guys, that was so cool.
Or are we still live?
No, we're not live anymore.
Okay.
Cool. I thought it was anyway.